Compassion.
Lòng từ bi.
Medfølelse.
Compassion. Mahabagin.
Compassion.
கருணை.
Compassion.
Karuna.
Compassion now.
Hello, everyone, and a very warm, heartfelt welcome to Compassion Now. Thank you so much for joining us, wherever you're joining us from, whatever time of day it is, whether it's morning, whether it's lunchtime, whether it's evening, whether it's the middle of the night. Thank you for the step of coming here to be with us for this historic event. My name is Jennifer Nadel, and I'm going to be your host, and I have the most amazing privilege of being the chair of the Global Compassion Coalition. To get us started, I've asked a dear friend and compassion warrior, Reggie Hubbard, to join us to open the event. Reggie is the founder of Peace Yoga. He's worked with the White House, he's worked in Congress, he's worked with labor organizations. He's both a teacher and an activist and an incredible human. Reggie, over to you.
Jennifer, thank you, and peace and blessing to all. Can you hear me? Cool. So peace and blessings, everyone. Happy Saturday or Sunday, wherever you are in the world. Jennifer, thank you for your kind introduction. And allow me to say what a blessing it is to be with you all, nearly 600 of you, for this beautiful experience, right? So I see Ghana, I see Bangladesh, I see Ontario, I see Brussels, I'm dialing in from Washington, D.C., and it just warms my heart, Iran, it warms my heart to be in service to you all this morning. And to kick you off, I would love to share a few words from my heart, because that's where compassion resides. And in a spirit of honesty, y'all, we're collectively exhausted, confused, and scared. And rightfully so. I mean, we've been through a lot. But see, the thing is that we've been through a lot. All of us have been through a lot. And we're facing crises of proportions that, largely the crises of our own creation. But if we created the problem, that means that we can also create the solution. And we spend way too much time in our heads pondering calamity and not nearly enough time in our hearts pondering and holding heart space for creativity and community. In the tradition of my upbringing, there is a scripture in 1 John 4:8 that says, "There is no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear." And I'm not naive enough to say that we shouldn't be afraid. But what I am saying is that fear can't be the only thing that informs us. Love has to be the thing that brings us forward. And this perfect love, y'all, that I'm talking about is patient. This perfect love I'm talking about is kind, beautiful. It's not selfish. It's not easily provoked. It keeps no record of wrongs, and it does not delight in evil. It always protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. It never fails. This is the power of compassion, metta, agape, and when we put it in action, when we individually and collectively catalyze our capacity to care, things change dramatically. And the power and beauty of this moment is that we're all here together to awaken this compassion. We're here to awaken this compassion worldwide and create conditions for our renaissance, and not talk about oh, woe is us. Woe is us, and what a great opportunity we have to use our heart space to create solutions that our head space created as well. So it's in this spirit that I bow before you with gratitude for the chance to open, hoping that my words have been of inspiration to you. Wish you well for the remainder of our time together. And we're just getting started, so please don't take this as just an introduction. This is a catalyst for a global revolution of which I'm proud to be a part of. Jennifer, thank you for the chance to be of service. Rick, peace and blessing to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reggie, for opening us. And I know you're incredibly busy, so we'll let you dash off, but thank you for making the time. And now those of you who have a candle with you, now is the moment when I'm going to invite you to light that candle. I'm going to light mine and try not to set my home on fire. And just light your candle if you have one. Just as a symbol of your focus and your intent to be present here with us, with so many people who are joined for common purpose. And just remember that each of us are here to cast our own light into the darkness. So I'm going to set my candle to one side, and then I'm going to hand over for a moment to Monique Johnson, who is our incredible show producer, who has been beavering away behind the scenes to give us some housekeeping thoughts. Monique, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer and Reggie, for kicking off today's launch event. Good evening, good afternoon, or morning to all of you that are here. I'm so glad that you joined us for the Compassion Now Global Gathering for Compassion Live event. Again, my name is Monique Johnson, and I'm the tech producer for today's program. So we're going to cover a lot of compassionate topics, and we're excited to welcome a lot of new advocates who are able to join us as well. With that said, we ask that you tweet the hashtag CompassionNow with 2 N's, and also tag us when you tweet at Compassion Movement, but movement is spelled MVMT. So I'm going to say that one more time. Based on the experiences that we're having today, we strongly implore you to share this all over the interwebs, specifically on Twitter. And we ask that you tweet us by utilizing the hashtag CompassionNow with 2 N's and compassion, and tag us at Compassion MVMT. This will also be put into the chat with you at the moment. And also, we want to bring to your attention the Facebook group community. And the link to join this group is posted to the chat as well. So we do have a few breaks built in throughout the day, but if you need to grab a snack, get some water, go to the restroom, or anything else, please feel free to do so. All of today's sessions are currently being streamed to YouTube right now. Hi, YouTube Live. All right, so you'll be able to catch anything you miss. We do, however, have some housekeeping items, okay? So we have a few Zoom housekeeping items that we want to address and review for today. For today's session, unless otherwise noted, we will not be using the chat feature for questions to our speakers. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. For the chat area, because we see that you all are very energetic in the chat right now, and we thank you, and thank you so much for letting us know where you're tuning in from. But for the sake of the speakers, when it comes to questions, we are asking you not to use the chat box feature. Instead, on the bottom of your screen, you should see a toolbar, okay? You will see a specific icon that's labeled Live Q&A. Go ahead and click on that button on the official Zoom toolbar. This is where you can enter your questions for those sessions that are hosting specifically live Q&As from the live audience, such as you all that are here today. And all the sessions where you may have questions as you see them or as you are watching them on the screen. So any questions towards the speakers, please go ahead and put it into the live Q&A area. Questions will only be seen by our GCC team, and we will do our best to address them as we are able to. Now, we're an open and welcoming community and ask that all participants are respectful and kind with any questions that they ask our speakers today. You'll also see our GCC policy manager and wonderful facilitator, Dee Sandhu, supporting us in the chat with prompts, key questions, and general support. Thanks, Dee. For sessions that have Q&A, we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible in the allotted time as stated, but we may not get to everyone. If you need any help with your chat or Zoom or have any Zoom technical questions, please send a message to my tech producer assist, Beth. Thanks, Beth. Lastly, we also have an option for live captioning. You should see a notification at the top of your screen noting that the transcript has been enabled. You can also click, you should see a tiny little X if you would like to remove that notification. Now to turn on the captioning, look at the toolbar again at the bottom of your screen, look for that CC icon and click Show Captions. And then voila, like magic, titles will begin to auto-populate and appear towards the bottom of your screen. Please note, though, that there will be a slight delay of the auto-population of how it appears on your screen. Lastly, to turn off closed captioning, look for that CC icon and click Hide Captions. All right, Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Monique, not just for those brilliant instructions, but also for all you're doing behind the scenes. And apologies to viewers for the audio on that. We're all zooming in, as you are, from all over the globe, and some of our connections are stronger than others. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a thank you and give a shout out to those who are beavering away behind the scenes. I'm here in front of you, but standing behind me are an amazing team. We've got Christine Claghorn, Matt Hawkins, Alex Wilkes, Dee Sandhu, Beth Razog, Kateri Brown, Christina Cavett, Steve Hickman, Megan Sando, and Erin Romain, and many more that I haven't had time to name. So without all of those people that you can't see, we wouldn't be here today. So a huge thank you to them. And now I am so excited because I'm going to welcome Dr. Rick Hanson to join me. Rick is the force that has brought us all together. He's the founder of the Global Compassion Coalition. And when he's not founding a global organization, Rick can be found leading his own practices and appearing on his immensely popular podcast, Being Well, with his son, Forrest, or penning another bestseller, or rock climbing, or supporting the Greater Good Science Centre. Rick, a very warm welcome. It's lovely to be joined by you and, of course, all the audience who have come from so many different corners of the world.
I know, I'm kind of amazed that we are actually pulling this off and that we have among us, if I could just read some of the countries so far, people from Germany, Canada, Netherlands, France, Turkey, Pakistan, Zambia, Sweden, Finland, where I lived for a year in high school, Brazil, Nepal, Jerusalem, Bangladesh, the Basque Country, and Spain, on and on and on. Iran, Ireland, I can't do justice to them all. And I think it's in that collective spirit, right? The power of we. We have had it. We are coming together to help make a better world. And that is a profound honor and delight to be part of with my partner in, I won't say crime, my partner in goodness, Jennifer Nadel.
Thanks so much, Rick. And yes, we've been speaking almost daily since last May, but we've never met each other in real life. And so I feel we're all on an equal here. We're all creating this movement from wherever we are around the globe. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm from London, England. Rick, please just give us how this came about. Give us some background. Where did this idea come from, and what's made you bring it into being?
Yeah. Well, first on your point that we've never met physically, which is true, but we've met often in other ways. And it's something for people who are participating here to feel that we are in a meeting together through our empathic imagination, the opening and the imagination of the heart, that we can feel gathered together. I think about our ancestors. 97% of the time that the human species, people like you and me, have walked the earth, we did so in small bands of 40 or 50 people that we lived with our whole lives. And I think about what it was like to gather around the fire, to speak with each other, to hear about each other's sorrows, to hear about each other's joys, and to give support for each other. And together, collectively, create a life in the Stone Age for sure, but still, to create a life that is as good as it could be for the many but not the few. That's hard, that's natural, that's normal. But what's happened for the last 10,000 years, as anyone can see who looks around, is that it's been okay, pretty good, really good sometimes for the few, okay for some, and pretty lousy for the many. And I feel motivated, like many people, to do what we can fundamentally to change that for the better. I've been meditating since 1974. The older I get, the more peaceful I get, and the madder I get at the state of the world. And so my notion is that we need to learn from what worked for most of the time we have walked this earth and gather together at a scale that is big enough to be strong enough to actually change systemic, structural, historic sources of needless and preventable suffering. It's only by coming together at that scale that we can do that. Meanwhile, of course, we want to study compassion and educate people about it and apply it in different areas and advocate for its value. Just that alone is reason enough to come together in this global coalition. But certainly the long-term purpose is to create a new kind of global commons, a new kind of gathering space, like Reggie talked about, and you've already spoken about, Jennifer, in which we can come together as we for the sake of everyone. That's the fundamental vision behind this coalition. And from my heart, I invite anyone to join. Everyone is welcome. If you have a belly button, you're human enough to join. We welcome your support, all kinds of support, advice, donations, suggestions, sharing your own story. All of it is really, really welcome. So thank you so much for letting me be here.
Thank you so much, Rick. And I'm looking forward to spending this time with you and with everyone else. And now to take us deeper into what we're here to talk about, it's an absolute pleasure to introduce an all-time hero of mine, Jack Kornfield. Jack trained as a Buddhist monk and went on to found both the Insight Meditation Center and Spirit Rock Meditation Center, as well as authoring several books on meditation, mindfulness, and philosophy. And he wrote one that has been my absolute favorite, After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. What a fantastic admission that no matter how spiritual we think we are, we still have to do the laundry. And that's often when problems occur. Anyway, over to you, Jack, and thank you so much for this.
Hello, dear friends. My name is Jack Kornfield, and I'm honored to be with you in partnership of the Global Compassion Coalition with Rick Hansen and so many kindred spirits. And I've been asked to reflect on compassion. Our Global Compassion Coalition website already describes much of the modern science of compassion, and also how in separation we lose compassion. Einstein calls this separation an optical illusion of consciousness. And Alice Walker puts it this way: one day when I was sitting there like a motherless child, which I was, it come to me, that feeling of being a part of everything. And I knew if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. And I laughed and I cried and I run all around the house, because when it happens, you just can't miss it. George Washington Carver explains it in another way. How far you go in life depends on your being tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant of the weak and the strong, because someday in life you will have been all of these. It's important for us to know and distinguish compassion from empathy. Empathy is a feeling with, a very important human capacity. Compassion is the next step. Compassion is a verb. It's an active response. If you see a child on a playground being bullied, you might first feel empathy for their suffering. But then compassion should move you to walk over and intervene or speak with the teacher or the school to help stop the suffering. The mindfulness that I teach, which I like to call mindful, loving awareness, has two parts, like breathing in and breathing out. The first part is mindful presence, and the second is mindful response. In Zen, they put it this way: there are only two things. You sit and you sweep the garden, and it doesn't matter how big the garden is, the garden of the world. Compassion isn't about becoming the savior of others. It's us. It's about us. It is us as a family. Global Compassion notes that there are grain elevators full of food and hungry children by the millions across the globe. We don't need more food. We don't need more oil. We need less greed, less hatred, and less ignorance. And this is why we respond. The beautiful truth is that we know this, that the mind and heart can be trained in compassion. And even when it's lost, we catch it from one another. Dacher Keltner's research in Berkeley at the Greater Good Science Center finds that the healing power of awe is most deeply awakened not by the magnificence of natural wonders, but by seeing the moral beauty of another human being. Here's a story for you from Richard Selzer, who is a senior professor a physician at Yale Medical School. He writes about standing by the bedside of a young woman after her operation for cancer. He says a tiny twig in her facial nerve, one to the muscles of her mouth, was severed. Her mouth now is twisted, clown-like in palsy, and she will be that way from now on. As a surgeon, he said, I followed with religious fervor the curve of her flesh. Nevertheless, to remove the tumor, I had to cut the little nerve. Her young husband is there with him in the room in the evening lamplight. Who are they, I ask myself, as the surgeon and physician, he and this wry mouth who gaze and touch each other so kindly? The woman speaks. Will my mouth always be like this, she asks. Yes, I say, it's because the nerve was cut. She nods, is silent, and then the young man speaks. I like it, he says. It's kind of cute. And all at once I know who he is. I understand and lower my gaze. One is not bold in an encounter with the gods. And unaware of my presence, he bends to kiss her crooked mouth. And I so close I can see how he twists his lips to accommodate to hers, to show her that their kiss still works. And I remember that the gods appeared in ancient Greece as mortals, and I hold my breath and let the wonder in. This is compassion. This is the way we touch this marvelous, broken, magnificent, unbearably beautiful, tender world. And as William Blake says, if you want to do good, it must be done in the minute particulars. General good is the plea of the hypocrite, the flatterer, and the scoundrel. Remember, with compassion, we are not just here to help, but for joy, to open our hearts, to remember who we really are, to invite the magic of compassion to return us to our original beauty, to touch that in ourselves and one another. When we change the heart, we change the world. We breathe in and quiet ourselves, and breathe out and sweep the garden of the world, which is ours to tend and love. Thank you.
That's really touching. Jack is my friend and my teacher, and as usual, my heart feels so open being in his presence. And I want to add that that's the opportunity for all of us, because fundamentally, compassion is an experience. It involves a feeling for others, including oneself, the feeling for yourself, because you can have compassion for yourself. That feeling of empathy, that sense of getting at what it's like for another person when things are hard, and a movement of caring, not just indifference or callousness, let alone cruelty. It's that combination of the two. And we can feel that. It's also true that this sweet, beautiful, so profoundly human experience has many, many benefits. Much scientific research shows that compassion and having more compassion in general helps to extend a person's lifespan. It actually helps to support physical health by calming down stress reactions. Compassion even makes sorrow more bearable because there's the sweetness of the caring amidst the bitter of the empathy for suffering. Compassion is bittersweet, and the sweet of it is wonderfully nurturing. Also, interestingly, compassion will change your brain. As the famous saying has it, neurons that fire together wire together. So the more compassionate neurons, I'm using the term loosely, that are firing, the more they're going to tend to connect inside your own brain based with evidence that is visible in cutting-edge modern scientific research. So at this point, I'd like to introduce a friend of mine and also just someone I respect immensely as a profound scholar, Professor Dr. Tanya Singer. Tanya, I'll read here a little bit, has dedicated her illustrious career to understanding the nature and the practice of compassion, and she has developed many very practical and effective ways to cultivate compassionate, supportive, effective interactions with other people. Tanya is not just an ivory tower academic, she's really engaged with directly helping people. One of the things I particularly admire about her. She's researched the impact of compassion on the brain, and at this point we're going to get a chance to see a video in which our own Jennifer Nadel caught up with Tanya and was able to ask her about the work that she's doing.
With different mental exercise, you can either more like open your heart and train compassion and care and qualities of the heart. And then there are other exercises which will focus your attention and be more, mindful, attention-based. And then there are yet other classes of practices which will make you better in like metacognitive awareness, so that you can take the perspective of another more like intellectual perspective, which is very important for conflict resolution and, more moving into global compassion. So we learned which practice is actually doing what. And we could also show in the brain that we actually, with 30 minutes of this mental training every day, we can change the structure of a brain, and also like an older brain, 50 to 55, not like just young brains. I mean, just as an example of many studies showing, we have totally different values as humans. And care, for example, affiliation, care, social values, social motives are much more important for our well-being. But our system we created, financial system, scientific system, educational system, health system, all the big systems are relying on mostly power motivation, achievement motivation, or consumption motivation. That's also important for human survival, right? They are not bad motivation, but our system are totally biased toward this motivation, and they have not included care, affiliation, relationships, love, and so on. It's like the Dalai Lama always said, no, compassion is not a luxury, but a necessity for survival. I totally agree. So I think we also have to redefine compassion. If we basically equate compassion with love, but not like this romantic love or sexual attraction, but really like the unconditional love of what is the fabric of life, right? Then it becomes the soul on which human beings are born in and living from. And so it's the only force which can make humanity survive, right? We just need to understand compassion to be a much broader thing. What most people think is just some kind of fleeting empathic emotion because someone suffered and you watched sad movie. That's not compassion. Compassion is a strong outlook on life. It's an intention to life. It's a motivation. It's not a feeling which comes and goes, right? And it can really become your backbone of how you serve to society, right? Instead of just taking. And so if you understand compassion as this very, very strong force, which has absolutely nothing weak, right? It is the most courageous thing you can have, and it's very difficult to live your life accordingly because you have to be very wise and very courageous. But if we use this force, I think that's the only force which will save our planet. With different mental...
That's such a powerful ending, isn't it? The force that will save our planet and all living beings within it, humanity amongst all other species, including other sentient beings besides humans who suffer and who often suffer because of humans, in addition to the ways that humans make other humans suffer. It all matters. It all matters. It's that sense of things mattering that I think Tanya really spoke to there, as well as the hopeful possibility that we can continually keep growing the good inside ourselves, increasingly hardwired into our brains and bodies, for the sake of the greater good, as well as for the sake of ourselves. Tanya is joined in our coalition with many, many other leading scholars and scientists. We're fortunate to have a number of them also on the board of the Global Compassion Coalition, and you can see who's involved with the coalition on our website, including our board, our advisory council, our founding supporters, and founding organizations. We're a baby organization. We've just begun. We've really been at it for about 6 months now, and see how much is growing, which has just been amazing to us all. Our board members who are scientists, scholars include Paul Gilbert, founder of the Compassionate Mind Foundation, Jaskaran Basran, who's also involved with Paul and instrumental in that work, as well as Marcelo Matos in Portugal, who said the word compassion in Portuguese in that very beginning, Nico Petroschi in Italy, and James Kirby in Australia. So it's a great honor, certainly, to be, included with these illustrious figures. Jim Doty, I should add as well, who we're going to be hearing from shortly, is also very much involved with historic leadership and scholarship in the broader field of compassion.
Thank you so much, Rick. And I am very excited because, yes, the real Jim Doty is joining us in the flesh from Western California. He, of course, is one of the major figures of Western compassion science. He's a clinical professor of neurosurgery and founder of the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education at Stanford University. He's the author of an amazing book, Into the Magic Shop, A Neurosurgeon's Quest to Discover the Mysteries of the Brain and the Secrets of the Heart. And just to give you a little fact you may not know about him, is the Korean pop band BTS actually took his book as inspiration from an award-winning song. Before I start, just to remind people to post any questions they have for Jim in the chat. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can afterwards. Jim, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
It's wonderful to be with everyone, and thank you all for joining us as we launch the Global Compassion Coalition. So it's wonderful to be with you, Jennifer, and all of my colleagues on the board, as well as everyone listening.
So I want to talk to you about the brain. What happens in the brain when we experience compassion? How does it work?
Well, without going into too much detail, because that'll take a little bit, but we have two parts of our nervous system which responds to our external environment. And of course, everyone's familiar with the sympathetic nervous system, which is the flight, fight, or fear response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which many call the rest and digest system. And this is part of the vagus nerve. But needless to say, when you're vagus nerve is stimulated, actually that stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And when that happens, amazing things happen. And in fact, you can get there with breathing exercises or different types of meditation techniques. But suddenly when you're there, you're much more open, thoughtful, inclusive. And what corresponds to that physiologically is in the brain, your pleasure or reward areas are stimulated. So it actually feels good to be compassionate, to care for another, to love another. And it's quite extraordinary because it also has peripheral physiologic effects in terms of blood pressure, heart rate. It boosts your immune system. It decreases the expression of inflammatory proteins. So being kind, being compassionate has a huge, huge benefit, both mentally and physically.
So it's this incredible, sounds almost like a medical intervention if it can have those beneficial effects on our health. It feels good. Most of us believe it's the right thing to do. What blocks us from being more compassionate? You know, we love the idea, but why isn't it manifesting in everyday life?
I think there are two aspects. One is that many of us are self-critical. In fact, many of us are harder on ourselves than anyone we know. So one of the key aspects is being able to be self-compassionate, to be kind to yourself, to love yourself, to feel that you're worthy. The other aspect is, unlike many, many years ago, where we grew up and lived, if you will, in the same village and knew everybody and everyone accepted us, the problem is in modern society, we don't have that. And as a result, people are incredibly fearful of being judged. And this affects them and it affects their interactions. And until you can be authentic, honest, it's very hard to connect with another person. So when you're kind to yourself, when you feel you're worthy, when you're not worried about the judgment of others, actually this allows for an incredible opportunity, and that's the opportunity to connect with another. And amazingly, when you connect with another, this is when you get all of the benefits we were just talking about, because you don't feel threat anymore. And you look at the other, frankly, as yourself. And this can be very hard. But when you look through that lens, everything that can possibly happen in a positive way happens to you. And it's extraordinary because, as the Dalai Lama says, the greatest benefit to you is actually when you're compassionate to others.
So it's this incredible circle. The more you give, the more you get.
Oh, that's exactly right. And it's an exciting possibility, which so many people forget, because it is within yourself to actually manifest your own happiness. Happiness doesn't come from external sources. Happiness comes from you feeling comfortable with yourself, accepting of yourself, and also looking at others and being non-judgmental and understand, just like you, everyone else is suffering to some degree.
And what about the role of fear? You know, I'm thinking of the bystander effect, things that stop us from acting compassionately, even if we have that self-connection and we're not hating on ourselves that particular day. What role does fear play?
Well, of course, when you're fearful, this stimulates your sympathetic nervous system. And what it does is it also shuts down what we call your executive control area in your brain. And this is the area which allows you to bring forth memories, positive experiences, because when you stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, this is simply shutting down all the other aspects because you're concerned about survival. So you don't have access to those memories, experiences. You're not able to calm down, to be open. And in fact, you shut down and you're just looking for the quickest route to survive. And it's an unfortunate holdover from our evolution as a species. But again, what's interesting is that you can actually train yourself to not be as reactive to what normally would be fearful responses. And this is actually comes from a saying that's attributed to Viktor Frankl, which is between stimulus and response, there is a pause. And within that pause lies your freedom. And it's training yourself actually to pause and not be as reactive. And if you're able to do that, actually, that allows you to live in this world in a much different way. It's one where you can walk in this world and feel safe when you don't look at the other with fearful eyes. And amazingly, your physiology works best when you're in that mode.
It absolutely is. And you talked about creating that all-important pause. Are you referring to meditation? What are the techniques that those who are longing to be in that pause and not into the cycle of reactivity, how can one get to be in that pause?
Well, yes, you can train yourself, and certainly a good way to do that is through a meditation practice, although many of our listeners may have either tried it or feel that mentally they're not able. And people get confused with what a meditation practice is. I mean, simply sitting down, closing your eyes, and breathing in deep and holding it for a few seconds and then releasing it, that can shift you into engagement of your parasympathetic nervous system and give you all of those benefits. But you can't get trapped into saying, I can't do mindfulness or I can't do these practices, because in and of itself, saying that statement actually creates a degree of fear. And no one's grading you here. And that's the thing, is you can just simply relax and breathe. And when you do that, actually, that is the opportunity to not only improve your physiology, but to give compassion to others. And one of the greatest things is when you're kind to yourself, you look through the world with a different lens. And when you recognize others are suffering, others deserve non-judgment, others deserve acceptance, in some ways that in and of itself is a pause.
Absolutely. And we've got some amazing questions flooding in for you. One is, how do I avoid taking on pain when experiencing compassion? And I can really understand that. You know, once we become aware of the level of suffering that is all around us, it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yes. Well, that can really be a challenge. And many caregivers are in that mode where they feel compelled to help others. But in some ways, that's because they're suffering from their own pain and they haven't addressed it yet. And they feel like, if I just give enough to others, that'll make me okay. And while that can be true on some level, for many people, they burn out and they are exhausted and they have nothing else to give. So I think you really have to take time for yourself. And again, take those moments to pause. And when I say pause, that's not 30 minutes, it's not an hour. It really can simply be just a minute or two. And in fact, throughout my own day, when I start feeling anxiety or fear or nervousness, I will simply sit down, close my eyes, breathe for a few seconds, and actually think of the joy and awe of being in this world, and try to open my heart to others. And it can be hard, but with practice, I can assure you it's possible.
That's wonderful. And when I started, I just used to set my timer for 1 minute, because when I sat still, it felt like my thoughts were a swarm of bees that were all trying to sting me. And so I couldn't stay for very long. And then gradually it became longer and longer. The pause became longer and longer. You speak about it so beautifully. Now, someone is asking, can compassion have negative effects too?
Well, in some ways, that's what we were alluding to. This is this issue of burnout and sort of giving everything to the other. And so certainly it can. And this is why really there's a balance between self-care and other care. If you burn yourself out, obviously you're not able to care anymore. So I would suggest that one's primary focus being on caring for yourself, because this gives you the strength, the resources, the resilience to be of service to others. And really that's what we're talking about here, is when you're kind, when you're compassionate, when you're caring, you are being of service. And whether you want to look at religions that have spanned thousands of years or science, there is every bit of evidence that when you are of service to the other, that is when your physiology works its very best. And what people don't appreciate is, as an example, we talk about the blue zones where people live traditionally over 100 years, and there are probably a million recipe or cookbooks on the Mediterranean diet. The fact of the matter is, while the diet is wonderful and exercise is wonderful, by far multiples more important is being kind to others, being accepting to others. That is the most important characteristic of those who live over 100 years. And in fact, if you look at the Harvard study, which has followed students for over 80 years now, again, it demonstrates the exact same thing. Those who are happiest, those who have purpose and meaning, those who live the longest are those who have depth of relationships and deep personal social connections.
Amazing. And when you talked about self-care, it immediately brought to mind Audre Lorde's famous comment that self-care is a political act, because without taking care of ourselves, we can't engage in the world effectively without becoming part of the problem. And I just wanted to pick up on something you said earlier when you described what happens when we're in that fight or flight state and we can't really think in a nuanced way. And of course, when we look at our political space, when we look at politicians, many of them are operating in exactly that space. It's confrontational, it's adversarial, the stakes are high. So what do you think the role of compassion could be when we look at our political leaders, and why do they find it so hard to put it into practice?
Well, one of the challenges is the difference between male and female physiology. And without getting into a big political debate about that.
Be careful. Oh, I'm going to be on you.
What I can tell you is that the traditional male role has been to dominate and, if you will, provide. And the traditional female role is to be much more thoughtful and, frankly, inclusive. And in fact, if you look at many of the countries that have implemented what we would consider compassion into the political commentary or within how the country functions, it is a much, much more positive aspect, both in terms of the citizenry and also engagement with other countries. And of course, one example I think with which we're all familiar with is Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. Unfortunately, so many men don't have connection with their feminine, and they, frankly, are also often insecure, and their method of interacting is one of aggressiveness. And of course, you cannot combat hate with hate. The only way you can deal with confrontation is love. And I know that may sound trite, but it's fact. And when you understand that the other, be it an individual, be it a country, is suffering or has something that is really bothering them, that they think that it's so important that they're willing to go to war, you have to look at what is the driver of that individual country's behavior. And this is what we don't appreciate. In humans, oftentimes, the driver of their behavior has absolutely nothing to do with the event at hand. And this is also true of countries, whether it's historical or recent events that have caused a feeling within the politician that causes them a degree of anxiety or fear that is below the surface of exactly the issue at hand. And again, it gets back to what we were talking about, the response when you're stimulated. If you take the pause, if you're more thoughtful, this allows for you to see other options than those based on fear. And of course, the options based on fear are typically aggressiveness. And at least if one looks at history, aggressiveness has not accomplished a whole lot other than destroy people's lives.
That's for sure. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about, as you know, I work a lot around politicians, particularly in the UK Parliament, that compassion is often dismissed in much the same way that we as women have been dismissed as a nice, fluffy idea, great to have around to decorate the place, but you don't want it in the room when the hard decisions are made, the difficult decisions are made. So is there something in that kind of patriarchal, almost offense to the idea of compassion, that it isn't hard and conflict driven?
No, you're absolutely correct. And this is the sad thing, is that there is every bit of scientific evidence that demonstrates that when one incorporates compassion into their activities, and whether it's the individual, whether it's the corporate environment, whether it's the healthcare environment, and frankly, within the political environment, everything works better. It's interesting. I've talked to a ton of CEOs, and many of them are fear-driven. And many of them take this patriarchal, aggressive attitude that the only way they get things done is by promoting fear in their employees. And the studies have shown repeatedly, if you're kind, if you're compassionate, if you give meaning and purpose to one's job, productivity increases, creativity increases, healthcare costs diminish, human resource costs diminish, people are happier, and the shareholder value dramatically increases. And that's science. And so when people make this statement, oh, well, compassion is soft and fluffy, they're absolutely wrong. Can compassion be soft and fluffy? Sure. But at the fundamental basis of compassion is science, which demonstrates that when one leads a compassionate life, when one looks through the world or through the lens of compassion at the world, everything is better. And again, whether that's the individual, whether that's the corporate environment, whether that's the healthcare environment or the political environment. And the sad thing is that we need more leaders in these places to understand this reality.
Jim Doty, thank you so much for joining us and for all the amazing work you do in this world. Thank you.
Thank you. Much love to you all. And thank you for taking the time to be here, and all of the speakers, and to everyone listening. See you later.
I want to add my thanks to Jennifer's, to you, Jim, who have been truly a legendary pioneer, a force of nature, actually, on the world stage for compassion and foregrounding it, developing the CCARE Institute at Stanford, the Center for Compassion and Altruism, Research and Education, and many, many, many other contributions. One of the things that stood out for me when Jim and Jennifer were talking, and is embedded in the questions that came, was the fact that we can actually grow compassion as a strength. In other words, we can both develop more experiences of compassion, more states of compassion, and over time, with positive neuroplasticity, the brain that changes based on what we're experiencing, we can actually turn those states of compassion into compassionate traits hardwired into our being, including related factors of mindfulness, empathy, calm, and a sense of strength and centeredness that can be open to the sorrows of the world without being overwhelmed by them. And so one of the things that we've done in this Global Compassion Coalition is to pull together a program with world-class teachers of compassion that we call the Heart of Compassion. And it's an offering of our coalition to you. We offer it for sale for those of you who can afford it, because it will help to support this nonprofit organization for which I do not receive a penny. And on the other hand, if you're just not able to afford that program, we make it available to everyone who has any kind of difficulty with paying for it. The teachers in it include friends and teachers of mine, Tara Brock, Tubtem Jimpa, Kristen Neff, Gabor Mate, and Rhonda McGee. The program is being starting on May 1st. You can see a link for it in the sidebar in the chat. You can check it out. We have a money-back guarantee if you do pay for it. It has lots and lots of content in it. It has interviews with these key people, guided experiential practices, research that backs up what they're saying, and more things that you can explore further. It's really a well put together program. So I really invite you to check it out, and I invite you to do it with me starting May 1st. We'll have 3 live question and answer sessions in it with me, and lots of opportunities for people to interact with each other during that program. And as I said, we're offering it as a way of supporting this initiative, this International Coalition for Compassionate Action, and helping us keep the lights on. To give you a feeling for it, we have a short little section from the program from Rhonda McGee, who's just a remarkable professor of law as well as mindfulness teacher, and a very deeply grounded and wise advocate for a more peaceful, loving, and just world. So right now, let's hear from Rhonda McGee. We will be hearing from Rhonda McGee in a moment, I assume.
Well, if Rhonda isn't coming, Rick, you and I can have a little chat. You know, and I know in addition to everything else you do, you work as an individual therapist as well. And, you know, I was really struck by what Jim Doty was saying about just that sense of overwhelm. You know, how do you protect yourself in the face of suffering? What's your personal system? Because we all want to do more and help more, but how can we do that without risking burnout or just despair?
Yeah. Compassion for yourself must live alongside compassion for others. And there must also be the wisdom alongside compassion that recognizes that to sustain compassion, as much research shows, I can't do that if I'm flooded, if I'm overwhelmed. And there are lots of reasons why people get flooded, including their history of trauma or simply just a temperament. Some of the most loving people in the world are also the most open-hearted and more vulnerable to being flooded by others. So one of the things that I find really helpful to do is to tune into the internal sensations of your breathing while opening your heart to others. Tuning into your internal sensations. People can do it right now. We've been talking at you. This might be a really good opportunity to take one or more breaths if you're comfortable. And if you're not comfortable tuning into your breath, as is the case for many people, including those who've been traumatized, just try to be aware of the room around you, the sense of the space of the room that you're in, which neurologically, much like tuning into your internal sensations, will give you a sense of calm centeredness, big picture view, and a feeling that you're still here. You're basically all right right now while you're feeling the suffering, whether it's of another person or yourself. And that's something that you can also develop over time. You can build that trait of calm centeredness, which will be a major factor, as research has shown, to be able to keep tenderizing your heart for others and for yourself.
Thank you, Rick. And I want to keep talking to you, but Rhonda is now ready. So let's move over to hear Rhonda.
What are our intentions? How do we want to move through the world in this short period of time we have on this planet, right? As far as we know, maybe there are other manifestations, but we know we have this life. How do we want to live it? For me, coming back again and again to this question of what kind of person do I want to be? If today is my last day, you know, for goodness sake, we all trust and believe it won't be. We trust and believe we have a long life ahead of us, whatever our age and however many decades we've been here. And yet the reality is we never know how much longer we have. So for me, I supercharge my commitment to challenge myself. You know, to me, there's some joy in knowing that I have a choice about how I want to be in relationship to whatever is happening in the moment, including this invitation to sort of choose to be present to the suffering of another person.
That's beautiful.
That's so moving, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, completely beautiful. And just want to add, if you're interested in this program, which I highly recommend, I really put my heart into it. I'm interviewing and talking with each of these 5 world-class teachers. They put their heart into it. They're offering it for free. It is a wonderful way to support the Global Compassion Coalition while getting a lot of personal value along the way. And now
Yes,
I'd like to, and now I'd like
I was
to
just
say,
going to say, Rick,
go on,
that,
yeah.
that one of the decisions we made was that that the coalition would be open to everyone, and that everything we do is open to everyone. So we have no financial barriers, no upfront fees, nothing. We just want to make this movement happen.
That's right. That's right. So I know that we're going to be taking a break soon, but I think we have an opportunity to talk with really a legendary figure in the field of compassion, Dr. Marilyn Turkovich, who's the executive director of the Charter for Compassion, which was founded by Karen Armstrong, as well as a number of really, really significant world leaders. And this is an opportunity, Marilyn, as I introduce you here, to really express my gratitude and recognition for the fact that, I think it was Albert Einstein who said that, or no, it was Isaac Newton maybe, who said, I can see so far because I stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, we are here today in a stream, a lineage of all those who have come before us, known and unknown, famous and not famous, for centuries and millennia, even prehistorically, all those who've come before us who care about the greater good and the common good. And one of the absolute, principles for us as a coalition is to include everyone, not replace anyone, and to create a kind of commons, a kind of field in which there's fertile ground. You may know the proverb, bad farmers grow weeds, good farmers grow crops, great farmers grow soil. Our fundamental mission in the Global Compassion Coalition is to nurture and nourish and fertilize and convene and call into being a soil that can grow truly a change in the course of history for the sake of all of humanity. And so I want to just really bring you in here, Marilyn, to ask you a little bit about the Charter for Compassion, which is, I think of as a preeminent benefactor. Benefactor is a sacred word for me in my own contemplative tradition, a sacred benefactor of the Global Compassion Coalition, a partner, a friend, an ally, and a fellow member like I am as well, a member of the coalition. So here we are joined together. Thank you very much, Marilyn, for joining us.
You're welcome. We started this journey almost a year ago. And lots of conversation and sharing of names and contacts. So it's wonderful to be here today. And it's amazing as I look at the chat and the names to see so many people that I know from around the world. And what an honor to be with people whose books surround me. And I have been in awe of for many years.
Well, that's really great. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Sure, okay. So this is a direct question. What difficulties have you faced and how have you dealt with them in creating a very large space in which a wide range of people and organizations can play together and don't always play well together? One of the things you and I have noticed is that it's a general principle that, generally speaking, business people will compete at the marketplace, but they will cooperate at the political level. They will put their money in a single bucket. For example, as you know, in the last 15 years, the oil and gas industry in America has spent $2 billion in blocking climate change legislation. Right. $2 billion, right? And they got what they paid for. On the other hand, many pro-social groups are the opposite. They're very friendly and cooperative. They like each other. They're nice, but they almost never put their money in a single bucket, or they almost never coalesce and join forces. Of course, when they do, as we've seen, the world really changes for the better. So how have you helped people who belong to the Charter? 2 million people have signed for it so far. How do you help people play well together? What have you found that works?
I wish I had, a really enlightened answer for that. But I really, truly believe that compassion is action. It's all about organizing to a certain extent. It's been wonderful to hear James Doty and Jack Kornfield, yourself. But our role is, I think, somewhat, maybe threefold. One is that we start at the local community. Karen Armstrong once was asked, what is it that makes a compassionate city? And she said, one that's really uncomfortable. Well, we all know what uncomfortable means. We know it in a neighborhood, we know it in a region, we know it in a nation. And if we're going to bring about change that really is compassion, then we have to deal. We need to go back and discover people like Saul Alinsky and what he was talking about, community organizing. And we need all of the things that we've been talking about. We need our own self-compassion, our own growth, but we need the comfort also of working in community with one another, so that we know that we have I think it was Tanya who said, we have the force to save the planet. And we have this good inside of us, but we really need to rely on one another. We need to rely on dialogue, on cooperation. And I think, we're just learning how to do that. We really officially got the ball rolling in 2014. That's not so long ago when you think about it. And like right now, we do have close to 600 compassionate initiatives around the world in 54 countries. But it's slow going because we're learning how to do this, and we're learning how to strengthen one another. And part of that strengthening is really taking care of, Jennifer mentioned, the wonderful name of Audre Lorde, that self-care is a political act. And so
Do you mind if I jump in on that?
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's such a great point. And I'm seeing a question that's also come in the live Q&A. It's a great question. It's fundamental, which is, how do we find compassion for the traumatized parts, the hurting parts in others, certainly, and in ourselves, One of the things that's really central in the Heart of Compassion program, I'll just mention, is Kristen Neff talking about self-compassion, and Gabor Mate talking about compassion for trauma in others and oneself. And also, of course, Rhonda McGee talking about compassion for injustice, which is a major factor often in trauma. Just so for you personally, I'm going to put you on the spot. That's the tricky thing with being interviewed by a therapist. We just ask these questions, just can't help it. But anyway, for you, kind of briefly before we go into a break, what's one thing that you do, Marilyn, to bring compassion to yourself? Maybe when you're frustrated, you're trying to herd all the cats in your own charter gathering, or for any other reason. Just can you share with us, whatever you're willing to say, some specific concrete ways that you do bring compassion to yourself and how you do it?
It's music.
Say more.
I think that I should be doing this every single day, but usually on Saturday I go to YouTube and I have my favorite people that I listen to. I work to music. I think probably like so many of us, I grew up with a cacophony of sound around me.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky as a kid. I grew up in an immigrant neighborhood. And so, the music of the world was at my feet. And it became, a joy, a loving joy. And I think that's what helps me. And I think that, all of us have those links to the past that bring comfort, And for some people, it might be a piece of art. For others, it might be the knowledge of, an animal that you grew up with, or laughter. Remembering, storytelling, and
do you do that while you are hurting?
Yeah.
In other words, compassion is applied to suffering broadly, includes subtle to anguished, and so while you're hurting, you might include these other things, not as a spiritual bypass, not to suppress or ignore your pain, but to help you be with it, right?
Yeah. I mean, as Jim Doty was saying, he sits down and he's just quiet. And Jennifer puts a timer on for a minute. All of this is to bring a little bit of comfort and focus back to us. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
I invite people in the chat, the general chat, not the Q&A, the general chat, to drop in maybe some of your own ways of comforting yourself, supporting yourself, nurturing yourself, being kind to yourself while you're dealing with difficult things. So on that note, Marilyn, thank you so much. I really mean it. We would not be here were it not for you. If you had not supported this from the beginning, we would not be here today. And from that, I bow to you and send you much gratitude.
Well, I think it's really important to know. I remember when the charter first started, I mean, no one thought about the Charter for Compassion or maybe even paid much attention to compassion. And if you go and Google compassion now, I mean, I think there's 8 million entries in Google, but there's so much room in a world with over 8 billion people.
That's totally true.
And here we are launching a really great coalition, a new network that really can address all of the aspects that we need to pay attention to.
That's right.
With compassion.
Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to hand it off to Mission Control, Monique. Can't hear you yet, Monique, but we will. I'm amazed that anything works at all, frankly.
Are you all able to hear me now? You should be able to. I think we're good. All right. Thank you so much, Rick and Marilyn. That was an amazing segment. And as far as everyone that we've seen thus far, it's been amazing conversation. Now, as promised at the very beginning, we said we scheduled some breaks. So today, or right now at this moment, is our first 10-minute break. So we're going to go on a 10-minute break. But for those of you who don't need that full 10 minutes and want to stay with us, and again, feel free to do what you need to do. We're going to be playing a wonderful short film from Mpho Tutu, who beautifully describes why we need a world based on compassion. Mpho is an Anglican priest, author, activist, and daughter of Desmond Tutu. And before that, however, my apologies, before we play that video, we will be hearing the song One Day from Matisahu. My apologies, Matisahu. We're incredibly grateful to Matisahu, who has kindly lent us his hit One Day as the theme tune for this event. We're posting lyrics in the chat, and in fact, in the next break, you'll be able to see the video with those lyrics. So see you guys back here soon. First, we will kick off with the song One Day, and then you will hear from Mpho Tutu. Thank you so much.
Sometimes I lay under the moon. I thank God I'm breathing. And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down.
Hello, everyone. So we are having some technical difficulties with info. So just give us a moment here. So in the meantime, please go ahead, continue to relax and get ready for this next segment here. And again, if you want to be a part of the Heart of Compassion program, there is a QR code that you should see on your screen right now for you to scan. And also you can go to that URL.
We know what it is to live in a world where it seems that compassion is in short supply. We know what it is to live in a world where it seems that our biggest concerns are I, me, and mine. We know what it is to live in a world where injustice, oppression, war, violence, climate change are the order of the day. We know what it is, and we know we don't like it. And sometimes it seems we don't know what to do about it. But the reality is, if we pause, if we take a moment, if we check in with ourselves, we will realize we know exactly what to do. We know exactly what to do because we've done it. And we do it every day. We know that what we need is to make the choice for compassion. To make the choice not only to have our hearts moved and to send our thoughts and prayers, but also to have our very being moved and to send the help that we can give to the places that need our help. We know how our hearts ache and how we weep when we see the images of war, of earthquake, of famine, of flood. And we know how our hearts leap when we see those who are able to lend their strength and skill and knowledge to help overcome the obstacles that devastation has thrown at us. We know how we're willing to reach into our pockets to support efforts to send aid. We know how to be compassionate, but we don't think of compassion as a way of life. And so it's not something that we place as a high value for ourselves or for our children. We kind of hope they'll just learn it by osmosis, that it is enough ingrained, hardwired into their being that somehow, even if compassion isn't something that we value, it will be something that our children exercise. The truth is, our children see what we value, and those in our surroundings see where it is that we place our attention. If all our attention is on I, me, and mine, then I, me, and mine must be the most important things. But we must make the choice for compassion. It's the only thing that will save our world from the path of destruction on which we are heading. We can overcome climate change. We can end famine. We can stop war. We can recognize that each of us is human, with the same human hungers for safety, for love, for security, for well-being. And we can create the world that we all want to live in, a world in which all of us can flourish. Join us.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hope you're all returning refreshed and ready for part 2 of our day. I've been so moved by everything I've been reading in the chat and by just the places that you've joined us from and how wide this coalition is already. So far we've explored the practice and science of compassion. And now in this middle session, we're going to explore what our world would look like with more compassion. And just to give you a sense of where we're going, in our third and final session, we'll be looking at what concrete steps we can take to start making that a reality. And we'll be hearing from Tara Brach and Marianne Williamson, amongst others. But for now, our focus is on what the world would look like with more compassion. And to get us started, I'm delighted that the comedian, mental health campaigner, and author Ruby Wax, who is backing the coalition, has sent us this message on why she thinks the world needs more compassion. So I don't think we've got Ruby. Where is Ruby? Is Ruby going to say something? That's very unusual for Ruby to be tongue-tied, if for anyone who knows her.
We were born to bond, and compassion is the glue. I can feel it now. That I guess I was at a certain age, or Mark Williams finally got through to me, but the key word is that compassion word. And if we could just get our minds around that one, we'd have a lot less problems. But I think more and more people, especially after the pandemic, understand that it's caring and it's banging a pot and pan at Thursday night at 8 o'clock that makes them feel exhilarated and makes them feel connected. I mean, we are suffering from loneliness. And again, compassion is the only thing that's going to break us out of that. You know, it connects us. There's nothing else that connects us. Not money, not success, not how many followers you have. It's the caring. I think the penny is dropping for a lot of people. So however you get there, and people are doing remarkable things now. I mean, I only because I started a charity. I see other people who work for charities, and they are the happiest people I know. So even if we just say do something to help one other person, just watch how you feel. But I mean, I think it's a no-brainer now that we aren't going to survive unless there is compassion.
As Ruby put it really fundamentally, we're not going to survive, actually, at a planetary scale if we don't treat others like they matter, including non-human animals that we live in a fabric of life together with. We're just not going to make it if we don't start treating others everyone like they actually really matter, including the tenderness, the hurt, the sorrow that really matters, including what matters as the result of long-standing structural systemic forces of injustice that advantage the few at the cost of disadvantaging the many. That is our stark choice, obviously, facing us as humanity, not to be overly grim about it, but just simply factual about it. And if there's anyone who knows what that's all about, it's our next guest and the person I'm going to have the honor of speaking with in a moment. One of the learnings for me, and I think for many people, is that as we grow a coalition that now is about 10,000 strong in just 6 months, and we're eager to keep on going, we start to learn that there are many, many different approaches to compassion or contexts for it and cultural settings for it that have tremendous wisdom, tremendous capacity to help the rest of us. And one of the things I've learned a little bit about is Ubuntu, a framework from Africa that has gathered political force. So in a moment, we're going to have a chance to talk with the wonderful Dr. Mempela Rempeli. Mempela, if I could talk with you in your first name, played a crucial role in the Black consciousness and anti-apartheid movements in South Africa and even more broadly. She continues, amazingly, to be a tireless activist and stateswoman at the global level. She's co-president of the Club of Rome, she's an academic, and she's, of course, co-founder of Reimagine South Africa. So, Mempela, I'm so happy you're here, and I'm glad you're joining me. And by the way, for everybody, if you have a question or a comment, especially a question for Mempela, please put it in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to it here. So, Mempela, thank you so much for being here. Maybe we could start off by just explaining, we have a lot of ground to cover, so I guess briefly for each, but what is Ubuntu and why does it matter?
Ubuntu is the essence of what it is to be human. It isn't something that you kind of go to school to learn. It is at the core of what it means to be who we are. And the reason we are now talking about compassion now is because we discounted the importance of the wisdom, and these are our common ancestors, because every human being on earth is an African. And that African ancient wisdom is embodied in the languages of my country called Ubuntu, in other parts of Africa, Umenala, and in other parts of the world, there are other expressions, including compassion. But what it says is that to be human is to be relational. We are not like any other species on earth. We cannot live outside of relationships. We are inextricably wired to be interconnected, interdependent. And the beauty of Ubuntu is that when it is in full flower, there is a sense of abundance. There isn't ever not enough food to share, not enough space to accommodate a stranger, not enough love to be able to love every child as your own. And the feminine within the philosophical orientation of Ubuntu embodies this essence of what it means to be human. Because what stops us from expressing this interconnectedness and interdependence is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what will people think. Fear. If you are truly feminine, fear of the unknown doesn't matter. Because how else do you explain that women can be pregnant for 9 months with something they don't know, and then give birth to it despite the pain and love it to bits for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So for as long as we as human beings discount the wisdom of our ancestors, the touch of the feminine, which is in all of us, men and women, we will continue to face the emergencies and the suffering and the tragedies we experience.
Yeah. My own simplistic understanding is summarized sometimes as, in the saying you, of course, know well, I am because you are, right? That sense of interdependence or interbeing, even as Thich Nhat Hanh put it. And I wanted to ask you, in a very concrete sense, you as an historic figure, you have an entry in the Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't personally know anyone else who does. And you were extremely involved, including tragically, in the political struggle against apartheid in South Africa. And I wonder how, in that struggle, Ubuntu was helpful as a context and a resource for that struggle, including for you personally.
Without Ubuntu, the struggle for freedom in South Africa will never have resulted in the negotiated settlement of 1994. It is that freedom, the liberation, the political liberation we are enjoying now is the result of a small group of people, as Margaret Mead taught us all those many years ago, that the only thing that changes history is the commitment of a small number of people. We woke up one day and looked at ourselves and said, how can we call ourselves non-whites, non-Europeans in Africa? Which was the greatest sign of how we had jettisoned the essence of who we were. When we embraced what we were brought up with in our respective homes as Ubuntu, where we are taught every minute you do something wrong, that's not how a human being behaves. And when you do something good, they say, you are really a human being. So the I am because you are was a lived experience in our upbringings. But the harsh realities of apartheid South Africa with its white male superiority and that imposed Black inferiority and inferiority of the feminine negated Ubuntu. And so we had to restore ourselves to ourselves. We liberated ourselves from the idea that we were inferior to white people,
yes,
inferior to men, and became, as liberated, as self-liberated people, the activists who contributed to the mobilization of each and every South African, from the poorest workers, the poorest parents, the poorest people, to wake up, including those young people who were the leaders of the Soweto uprising. So this idea of Ubuntu is at the heart of what would restore the world to itself, restore the world to the great place it could be where we are inextricably linked and interdependent, and caring and promoting global equity for a healthy planet.
That's wonderful. And if I could summarize a question that's come in from the audience, it's a truly global audience right now, which is really exciting. When you look out at the world, and you are familiar with global institutions like the World Bank, the United Nations, and other organizations, when you look out at the world, how do you see that the wisdom and heart in Ubuntu can be applied to the systemic injustices, inequities, economic and political that we see in the world today?
The first step is to acknowledge that we are where we are because there was an active erasure of Africa's indigenous science. The only thing they couldn't erase were the pyramids that were the manifestation of a people who not only were philosophically steeped in this wisdom, but also were keen observers of nature, and that's how they studied science. And so my view is that we as a global community are called to acknowledge our discounting of not just African indigenous science, but indigenous science writ large, because many, many indigenous communities in the world today are what keeps the essential natural resources alive.
Yes.
Think of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Think of the people of Australia. Think of those people.
And bless them for their stewardship,
Thank
which
you.
is obviously beleaguered and mistreated and disrespected. Bless them.
Absolutely.
If I could ask maybe a final question, it's a very pointed one. To me, compassion alone has great value, including for the person who experiences it and for the people who receive it. But compassion alone is not enough. Compassion in action seeks justice. I mean justice in the broadest sense. And I wonder how you put compassion and justice together, including even at the context at the world scale, in which it is a simple fact that trillions of dollars, it's so much it's almost uncountable, of resources were extracted from your country, your continent, and your southern hemisphere, and moved up into the northern hemisphere to benefit many, many people, including me. How can we come to terms with these historic injustices and face them squarely without hatred in our hearts, but still with the strength that combines compassion and justice seeking?
Compassion combined with justice is Ubuntu. It is going forward with the acknowledgement that something went wrong.
Yes.
And that in African culture and in indigenous cultures all over the world takes place through circles of conversations. Where we are eyeball to eyeball, acknowledging the mutual hurts and the pain. Because believe you me, by humiliating another human being, you are diminishing your own humanity. And so humanity is broken across the globe. Not just, when we talk justice, it's not just the restoring of material deprivation that occurs throughout history. It is restoring the essence of who we are by acknowledging that slavery was inhuman. Extractive economic systems are inhuman and unjust.
Yes.
And we now know they actually are a threat to our very existence.
Yes.
Because they destroy the ecosystem that is our Mother Earth, our planet. And so we owe it to one another and to future generations yet to be born to make amends, to make this acknowledgement and then move on. It's not about you owe me, it is about we owe one another.
Yeah.
This reparative work, this healing work, so we can move forward together to create a global community where there's equity and health and well-being for all.
Right. No, thank you so much. And to be really clear, as you well know, we are using the word justice in a very broad sense in terms of what is fair. what is simply fair, and what is healing, including when wrongs have been done and people have been unjustly harmed. So we're using that term in a really broad way. A little later in this program, my friend Jennifer Nadel will be talking about compassion and action and things that people can actually do in their own circles, as you said, in your own circles. And now I would just simply like to thank you, Mampela, for being here with us today, and most deeply thank you for your life's work, which has really just been extraordinary. You are compassion and justice in action. You are Ubuntu in action, and I thank you for it.
Thank you very much. Let us have compassion now, not tomorrow, now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mampela. I feel so humbled and inspired. It's a great honor to all of us to have had you join us. So while Rick and Mampela were having that incredible conversation, we have been assembling an international panel of activists, and we're going to do a super quick whiz around the globe to get a snapshot of the difference compassion could make in a number of different places. And just to remind everybody that this is a really broad coalition. It's made up of all of you who are watching. It's made up from global states figures like Mampela. It's made up of compassion's scientists, and it's made up also of activists. How do we bring the wisdom of compassion and the world of activism together? So, Rick, take it away.
Oh, thank you. And because it's kind of a whirlwind, we'll just take about a minute per person. And I invite you who are participating here to follow up with these remarkable individuals, if you have an interest in what they're offering. I'd like to begin first with my friend and mentor, the Venerable Bhante Buddharakkhita, from Uganda, I believe, who studied extensively in America, a longtime practitioner in a tradition that's very close to my own heart, early Buddhism, and its Theravadan wings over the last 2,500 years. So my question for each of you is, if you could take just about a minute, and then I'll move on to the next person to make room for everyone. In about a minute, what is your vision personally in your heart for a more compassionate world? So Bhante, let's begin with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rick Hansen, and all people who have attended here. So for me, I'm in this part of the world, Uganda, in Africa. I just feel that really we need to heal from all the traumas. This healing is very, very important, and each of us, we are responsible for that healing to happen, using not compassion alone, but wisdom and mindfulness, that combination. Those things have to synergy together, mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. If one is lacking, let's say if you don't have enough mindfulness, compassion is not going to work. If you don't have enough wisdom, there will be no balance. So for me, I just have a simple question. Compassion in action is equal to mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion itself. So in this healing, we all traumatized, like in Africa, for instance, we are even suffering from colonial hangovers. Africa was colonized. It was left as scrambled eggs, in 1884, when it was divided. So we are all divided on different lines. So there's a lot of conflict. So if there's any compassion to come, we need to heal our traumas, and then we do things that are bring compassion in action. Like, for instance, Uganda Buddhist Center, we have constructed medical centers, we have constructed boreholes to give people clean water. So people need action, and this is coming from wisdom. Yes, not talking about it, really physically, verbally, and mentally. So we have constructed, we have a program running which is called Hunger Relief. We have we have constructed schools to teach about compassion and mindfulness and wisdom. So education, and education on mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. So in America, where I stay, I see some suffering from slavery. In everywhere, there's some kind of suffering that is based on our historical thing that we can actually really heal.
Right.
That's my 10 cents.
Oh, thank you very much. And just the way you put it there, the foundation of any kind of physical or mental health or societal health is seeing clearly. Seeing clearly, right? And seeing clearly the facts does not mean shaming. It means truth-telling. And also, I think that there's a great opportunity for people who, like me, have inherited the unjust actions of my ancestors. It's not so much about shame, but about grief, as Paul Gilbert teaches. We can have grief about injustice, which then moves us to action, So thank you very much there. Christina, or Christine, I beg your pardon. I'd like to call on you now. You can unmute yourself. I think I asked you to unmute, or someone else will. So great. What is your vision? What is your vision of a world that is grounded in compassion?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine. I'm 21. And for me, my ultimate dream is just to make it cool to be compassionate again, to make it cool to care. I feel like one of our main purposes is to care. Compassion for me is a fuel to happiness, to living a more meaningful life. And for many of us, compassion is an inherent and something that we're just born with. But sometimes the conditions for compassion to be activated is dependent on the conditions, obviously. But yeah, I feel like as I grow up and I'm surrounded by other people in my age group, there's a little bit of fear of being openly compassionate, which is fair enough. People get hurt, you lose trust, but the world is so much better when everyone is just kinder, and to not just each other, but to all things living, to Taiao, the nature and everything. Because I feel like when we are more compassionate, then we are truly thriving and living more in our purpose. But yeah, that's my avocado, my thoughts on a compassionate world.
Oh, that really touched me, and I can see in the chat it touched others as well, including just the way you put it so directly, making it cool to care.
Yeah.
Right? Just to care. It can seem so uncool to care, and people can become hardened, and our modern technologies can distance us from others. And I wondered, just if I could ask you almost a personal question, as a younger person, do you ever feel that it's hard to get respected or included for your own voice that has really so much to offer?
Definitely at times I find myself in spaces where I feel I've not lived long enough or experienced enough to share or just speak up, but I just have to be more compassionate towards myself and understand that what I've gone through is enough and that I'm worthy to speak up about it, regardless of my age or my experience. I know that everyone here, no matter at any point of your life, everyone has experienced some type of pain, mamai, and we can all relate in some type of way. So yeah, to anyone who is younger and feels like small, don't be discouraged. There are people who care and would love to hear what you have to say and care about how, what you feel and all of that. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Really. And I honestly want to bow to you and your generation. I was part of a generation in America in the 1960s and 1970s that really helped a lot of good things happen. And the engine of those major social movements were mainly young people. And so I want to express my gratitude to your generation around the world who's now getting more and more mobilized for climate, for justice, for changing discrimination and racism. And so thank you. Well, Asaman, you are in Australia, I believe, so there's some distance there. Maybe I got that wrong. What do you think? What's your vision of a more compassionate world? What would it look like? What would it feel like? You have to unmute yourself. There you are. Good.
Yeah.
Go.
So for me, a more compassionate world would be a world where we are more compassionate to ourselves, because I know like when we're talking about compassion, it's usually towards other people. But I think that it should start with yourself, because you can't really be compassionate to other people until you learn to be compassionate to yourself. Because I know at least people my age, because of COVID, they have a lot of problems. And I think if they can learn to be compassionate to themselves, it will be a lot easier for them to be compassionate to everyone else around the world.
Wow. I'm touched by that. And I'm thinking about, you know, Bante being in Africa, Christine in New Zealand, you in Australia. And do you have one specific suggestion, Asaman? We can unmute you again, or you can unmute yourself, for what's one concrete way? Jennifer's going to be introducing our Connectors program a little bit later on. If you think about one specific concrete way to do just what you said, what would you suggest?
I think one way would be to be more, I guess, accepting of yourself, like accepting of who you are and like mistakes that you make. Like if you make a mistake, you should be able to accept that. And like, yeah. You just, yeah.
That's great. I could do better at that. One of my mistakes is not accepting my mistakes. So that's definitely something I can keep going on. Well, as we finish here, I know that others are joining me and deeply appreciating all three of you, and the ways in which through you we can imagine and bring into our hearts literally millions, even billions of other people, you know, around the world, and you know, who are joined with us here in the common humanity of suffering and in the movement to relieve that pain as best we can. So in a moment, I'll turn it back over to my friend and partner here, Jennifer, but I just again want to say thank you. And thank you for young people around the world. Thank you for everyone who is practicing most sincerely to ease suffering in others and in yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I found that so inspiring. And, you know, the truth is that we are the majority. We are the compassionate majority. Most of us in the world want a more compassionate world. And we've been hearing from other people about how they see things. And now we're just going to have a moment where we hear from you about the sort of compassionate world you want to build, and we're going to be creating a vision together. And to kick off that process, I'm pleased to share with you a rather lovely video of messages. Or maybe not. These are short films that have been sent in by members of the coalition from across the globe.
I want more compassion because that's our true nature as human beings. We are one and we are all belonging.
We need compassion to change the world and fulfill our destiny.
So compassionate action is the way to make a sustainable world.
The world needs to pause, slow down with the rush, and realize that compassion is the essence of humanity.
We need compassion now as much as ever to reconnect with our sense of common humanity, this fundamental desire for others to be free from suffering.
Because if everyone would feel compassion towards the one next to him or her, imagine what kind of life could we have? What kind of world are we living in? We would laugh so much. We would smile so much to each other. We would embrace strangers like they would be our own family, because in the midst of compassion, this is what we truly are.
Compassion.
is love in action.
This is how I imagine a compassionate society, busy with each other, at peace, in well-being, grateful.
It needs no passport, no visa. Compassion is also fundamental for driving diversity, equality, and inclusion across all organizations and nations.
We need compassion now because we are in an urgency of the climate, biodiversity, and all the world crisis. We need it to help those who are the most vulnerable, the front lines, but who are also acting. So we need compassion to act all together.
We need compassion now because compassion is a catalyst to action. Compassion is a catalyst to sharing ideas, to truly being heard. All of our struggles are tied together. If we leave anybody behind on this movement, we haven't moved anywhere. Only compassion can teach us that. Only compassion can show us that no one should be left behind.
When you are willing to lead with love as part of compassion language, you will be deprived to see the answer or solution. That is why it is essential to choose compassion now.
To adapt, to support one another, to see one another's suffering as our calling. And whether we respond through active choice or through subtle activism, we are responding through the lens that what I do for you, I do for myself. And what I do for myself, I do for you.
What I long for, what would really satisfy me, is global compassion, care for others, justice for all, and peace, great and natural peace. May it be so. I hope you'll join us.
Oh, so beautiful and so uplifting. And we're coming up to our break. And before we break and come back for the third session, where we're going to be looking at what we can actually do to make this wonderful world a reality, I'm going to ask all of you to just take a moment just to move, just to, if you want to stand up, stretch up, stretch out, just release some of that tension. It's so easy as humans to forget that we have these bodies. We get stuck in our heads, thinking, watching, listening, earnestly trying. And so just I invite you just to take a moment to come back into your physical self. And then I'm just going to ask you to make sure that you have your colored pens. We're going to have a little moment of kindergarten, okay? Because all of our inner children need a little moment to play. Compassion is also about joy. So if you've got some colored pens and paper, have them handy. If you haven't, grab anything you can write on and a pen. It doesn't matter. This is just going to be fun and I hope also significant to you. So if I can invite you all to take your seat and just take a moment to really ground yourself in your physical being. Feel the ground under your feet. Feel your sitting bones supported and feel your shoulders release and feel your head stretching up towards the heavens. Strong as an oak, your feet rooted to the ground, stretching upwards, resilient, able to withstand storms, able to bend in the breeze, able to weather, fully resilient. And just take a deep breath, as deep as you can, as low as you can, right down into the pit of your being. A place where knowing resides, where instinct resides. And try and stay connected with that deep, deep place within all of us. And just come back into the space with me. And we're just going to play for a few minutes. So, first of all, I'm going to invite you to take your piece of paper and just draw a circle in the middle, a kind of oval. This is mine. Rick, are you doing this?
You bet.
Okay, Rick's doing it, so I hope everyone else is. And then I just want you to take a moment to feel into that deep place. And I want you to start writing down words that describe what this compassionate world would feel like. You know, we're creating a vision here of where we want to be headed. So often we hang on to the negative, but right now, if we want to head to this compassionate world, we need to have a map, we need to have a vision. So just write down some of the words of what it would feel like to be in this compassionate world. Let's make it real. Would it feel peaceful? Would it feel harmonious? Would it feel safe? Would it feel loving, fair? Just write down what comes up for you. No right, no wrong answers. Don't think, just write, scribble. Imagine you're back in that space before inhibition and self-consciousness. Whatever words strike you. Lovely words, belonging, I'm seeing in the chat. And then really look at those words and breathe into them. And I want you to take a pen and I want you to join each word up to the circle you've got in the center, the oval you've got in the center. And as you join each word to that center, I just want you really to lean into the feeling of that word. You know, if it's belonging, oh, safety of belonging, feel it and just draw a line connecting it to the center, and do that with each of the words you've jotted down. Really feel into them. Each one of them. Nurturance and care. Beautiful. Peace, love, unity, respect, freedom. Oh, feels so good. It feels so good. Okay, and then when you have done that, just in the middle, write the word compassion in the middle of your circle. Write the word compassion. Joy, I'm seeing trust. Feel free to add more words on as they come to you. And then write compassion in the middle. And take a look at this. This is our map. This is where we're headed. So many of us fill our heads with despair and negativity. And if we do that, that is not a great place to change the world. You know, what we focus on grows. So we need to focus on these qualities, these feelings, this experience. This is what we're going to co-create together. So really absorb your image and it's yours. It's yours. Oh, I'm just saying the word sweetness. Thank you, Daniel. I love sweetness. And just know that this is precious. This is yours. Keep it somewhere close to you so that you can look at it. Rick, how did you get on?
I loved it. Can I show you my picture?
Please.
I mean, I'm terrible at drawing, but here it is. Let's see if
I can't quite see it. It's the light's bouncing off it.
Probably. It's okay. You get the basic idea. It was fun, really good. And I love what you said there, Jennifer, about feeling connected. We're going to talk later about being concretely connected with other people, but to feel that these different aspects of the world we long for are connected to each other, and they are connected also deeply inside each of us in the heart. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone who took part in this for letting go enough to do that. And would really love you to share your images. You know, there are so many of us that we can't all see each other, but we've got a Facebook group open, we've got social media. Let's flood it with images of what this compassionate world would look like. So we're going into our break now, but I hope that while we're on our next 10-minute break, you'll take a snapshot and share it. And I will hand back over to Monique, or maybe I don't even need to. Maybe I can just say we're having a 10-minute break. Come back very soon, just 10 minutes, set a timer. I can't wait to see you. We're going to have a lot of fun when you come back. Thanks.
I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will pay. One day, one day, one it's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they bleed on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving though the water stay raging. In this maze, you can lose your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it phase you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will pay. One day, one day this all will change, treat people the same. Stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom like all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play.
Hello, everyone. We will be starting in 2 minutes. Sometimes I lay under the moon, I thank God I'm breathing, and I pray don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will pay. One day, one day, one it's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they bleed on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving though the water stay raging. In this maze, you can lose your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it phase you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my
Oh my goodness. That song, we're so grateful to Matisyahu for letting us have the rights to it for this event. It couldn't be more perfect. And I'm going to be singing it for a long time to come. Welcome back, everyone. We're in our third and final session. We're going to be looking at the really important piece of the compassion puzzle, action. It's really exciting. We've got some amazing speakers lined up, and then we're going to tell you how you can become part of the solution. It's easy to feel powerless. It's easy to feel disenfranchised. It's easy to feel hopeless, but there is an antidote to that, and it's action. Over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Jennifer. And sometimes we just feel compassion and there's nothing we can do. It's still real. Often, though, there are things we can do, and sometimes alongside that compassion, blending with it, are other emotions, understandably. Outrage, injustice. I was able to visit Haiti, a country that's near and dear to me, about 10 years ago for just the first time. And I remember walking through various places in the days that I was there in a state of cold rage. That's the honest truth. I was in control, I was not hateful, but I was appalled in a very moral kind of way at what I was seeing there. That's part of the truth of things. And it was a very important topic to explore in the Heart of Compassion program, actually, with each of the speakers, but especially people like Kristin Neff, who has written about and talked about a kind of potency of strength, perhaps the word fierce, that can be mingled appropriately with regulation together with compassion. And I'll show you a little clip in a moment from that Heart of Compassion program that I really do hope you do. It'll support the Global Compassion Coalition in very concrete and tangible ways. Of course, it's available for anyone who has any kind of financial need. And you can learn a lot more about it, with the QR code. But right now, let's see how Kristin Neff, Dr. Kristin Neff, who's been a groundbreaking teacher of self-compassion, talks about bringing together anger and compassion. Let's see what she has to say. And routinely, no worries, with modern technology, there's often a pause before a video plays.
It's that gap, isn't it, Rick? It's that gap that we all need between something coming in and our reaction to it, the pause in the middle.
That's completely true. And I know we'll cue it up in a moment, but I'll just maybe, meanwhile, ask you, Jennifer. Here we go.
To get angry at certain behaviors and situations when they're unjust, if they're racist, if they're harmful. It's appropriate to get angry. If we didn't get angry at those behaviors or situations, we wouldn't do anything about them. But that doesn't mean that the person who's doing the behaviors or causing the situations is somehow less valuable. It's kind of like you focus on the behavior and the situation, what can be changed, but still having respect for the person. Where hate comes in is you're hating a person. I hate racism. But people who are racist don't know hate there, because you kind of understand with compassion all the causes and conditions that have led them to be where they are in their life, right? But it's appropriate for harm to be angry.
To be strong in other ways.
Or strong.
Maybe anger
may come up, it may not. But the reason I talk about anger is because sometimes people shy away from anger. They think anger is, kind of bad. Well, very quickly, it can be harmful if it starts being aimed at people. And it's very natural for it to be aimed at people. So yeah, it's tricky and all that. But anger is a really useful, evolved emotion that focuses us, it energizes us, it suppresses the fear response. So there absolutely needs to be a place for anger in compassionate action. But it's aimed at harm, not at people. Because if it's aimed at people, then you're causing suffering. If it's aimed at harm, then it's all about alleviating that harm.
That is so true, including the fact that I was muted a moment ago. So let me just double check the right buttons. So many buttons, so little time. Maybe you also sometimes feel that way. And, you know, someone who has really, really harnessed the sense of injustice and helped it be motivating and organizing and focusing is Joan Blades, our next guest, who I'm going to have the honor and privilege of speaking with in just a moment. And Joan is the co-founder of several important organizations, MoveOn.org, and there we go, Moms Rising, with over 1 million members, 1 million mothers in America, and Living Room Conversations, her most recent venture. So Joan, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see your picture live in just a second here, I think. And I wanted to start, if I could, probably the question that a lot of people have for you. What moved you to stick your neck out in this very real way? Not once, not twice, but 3 times and in such an effective way as well. I mean, what role did compassion play for you in all that?
Well, I think the real story is that I'm a mediator by origin.
Yeah.
And that's about empowering people to make their own decisions and to be powerful in their lives. Yeah. So this does fit very well with this section of your seminar, because you know, Move On was actually started around a time of huge polarization with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, and people were going censure and move on to pressing issues facing the nation because things were so polarized at that time. I'm kind of horrified what I think where it's gone from there. Yeah. But Moms Rising, there we had a systemic problem where there's huge bias against mothers in the workplace. And it's not because most people hate mothers. And so could we all work together to change things? And it's a wonderful set of voices and recognitions of shared values. Living Room Conversations, it's been clear that though these other organizations, you know, had very unifying origins and efforts in many cases, really going directly to that sense of us and them was critical. And I think, you know, not othering people is the starting place for being able to really be in connection and compassion.
So can I ask you first, how would you put it succinctly, what it means to not other someone who is other than you? But more fundamentally, how can you not other others who you see clearly are doing things actively to harm you or those you care about?
I think your last speakers was really good at being focused on the harm and seeing the humanity in the individual. And as we've become increasingly, and I can speak from a US perspective, and I know this is a very international group. But I see we're not even having the same definitions of words anymore. And we're just going like this. So we have to start by treating each other with respect. And, you know, so the Living Room Conversations are just an open source project that's honestly been used around the world and translated into many languages. I have visibility here in the US, but in the rest of the world, they're small, intimate 6-person conversations that are in a container to really help people listen with a set of conversation agreements that are basically what we all learned when we were in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Take turns, be respectful, be curious.
Share your toys.
Yeah, own your part of what. And it's amazing how powerful it is when we enter into a conversation with that intention. I always learn something. And sometimes I think I've learned a lot already, but it's always something new, and I know myself better, not just those people I'm in conversation with.
Yeah. We're putting living room conversations into the chat sidebar so people can learn more about it. I've looked through a lot of the material of it, including these questions, these structures. I think of them almost like a recipe for a good conversation, including around challenging topics that are quite structured and helpful. I think you have well over 100 of those recipes by now, right?
Over 150.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
Thing is, I actually, at one point, we made an old-fashioned recipe card.
Oh, great!
Just
I love
like
it. The cookbook, the conversation cookbook. That's it. That's what we need now. But here's my question for you: compassion is not agreement. It is not approval. We can have compassion for those we oppose. We can see the common humanity in them, even if we really disagree with them and are acting against them. So I think that's a really important thing to appreciate, as you know. And we can have compassion for ourselves, even if we recognize genuine mistakes that we've made and things that we have to learn. So there's what's, to me, is a great teaching about the freedom that's available to us in compassion. And I wonder, for you, as someone who has lived in activist politics in America, going back to the Clinton era, if not before that, who's lived in a context in which there are strong tendencies to be really angry at other people and upset about them. What do you do personally inside yourself to help yourself stay rested in a good place that combines both compassion and, as need be, assertiveness?
I think what this practice has taught me is that it's very confusing to be in a good relationship with someone that has deeply different beliefs.
Yeah.
And that often we have more in common than we realize, but we still have some real differences. But the fact that that person with a very different belief that I really do disagree with strongly is still a loving, wonderful human being, an intelligent, loving, wonderful human being, is confusing. Some people describe it as holding the tension of our differences. And this is the place where I have to have faith that if I stay in right relationship, a path will be found. And the other interesting thing about persuasion is something a lot of people want to do. And arguing with people is not persuasive. Debate is not persuasive. Connection is persuasive. Love changes people's hearts. And when you're in good connection, I mean, I found ways in certain places, and I'm still looking for the paths in others.
Yeah.
And collectively, we need to do this. That's the dream with these conversation guides and why they're open source, because
that's right.
You can't have a bottleneck. Anyone that's willing to show up,
yeah,
invite a friend with a different view, and you each invite two friends, and you have that conversation, which is, the guns and responsibility conversation. It's powerful because people show up and they talk about, what role guns played in their childhood. There's a story we have from one faith community where there are two people there that it was deeply connected to their sense of family, their connection with their fathers, and, ready to die for their Second Amendment rights. And another person there that had been traumatized, not once, but multiple times. And these people, they hurt each other. And the other couple of people. And that's the starting point for transformation for a lot of people. So it's part of the healing. It's part of our way of, discovering a new path.
Well, thank you. And I know that, as you know, like today is April 15th, if people are watching the recording of this, and next week in America It is the National Week of Conversation. And you're doing an event that we're joining with you, we, the Global Compassion Coalition, as well as the Greater Good Science Center, my kind of home territory, UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. I wonder if you could talk a bit about it. It's April 21st, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Other times around the world, there's information being dropped into the stream here. Can you tell us briefly as we finish here about that event and your hopes for it and what people will get out of participating?
You know, Becca's leading on that one, our amazing and wonderful ED, and I'm leading on one later that day about how the tools of bridging are good for productivity and retention in the workplace, because I have some background in that area. So I bet you can tell me more about this one than I can.
That's
well,
funny.
I can tell you because I'm going to be part of it. Hi, Joan. Nice to see you. Yes, Becca, your executive director, I and Alison from the Greater Good Science Center are going to be hosting this session on how to bring compassion into the heart of conversations and how to have conversations across divides, you know, how to bridge. And it's so amazing what you brought into being, Joan. You know, these bridging tools are just fantastic. And I'm so excited to get a chance to share them with our members on the 21st. So thank you.
Well, very welcome, and we're grateful to be doing it with you, because it's together that we're going to be able to be transformational. And then I'm going to do my plug for everybody letting us know about it, because when we can tell these stories, that's when other people go, oh, I could do that too. And it's fun. That's the thing I also have to talk about, because people keep on, I get way too serious about things often, because this stuff is deep and it's beautiful, but it's also really fun meeting people you wouldn't meet otherwise and expanding your view on whatever topic you choose. You know, we have belonging and forgiveness and things like that, but guns and responsibility and abortion and, you know, social identity. And they just let you start to hear about how other people are experiencing these really important parts of our lives. So join us and then lead us, be part of this.
Thank you so much. We'll make sure that we all share our stories of the conversations that flow from this wonderful practice that we'll be learning on the 21st. Thank you so much, Joan, for joining us. It's been absolutely inspirational.
Bye.
Bye. And I just wanted to pick up on something Joan said there about the power of story. Story is so, so important. And, you know, I've noticed with a lot of our speakers, like Jack Cornfield spoke so powerfully in recounting that story of the surgeon who operated on the girl whose mouth was going to be twisted for the rest of her life, and the tenderness with which her husband greeted her when she came out of surgery. And it is stories that move us. And Rick, we've been so privileged, haven't we, in the number of stories we've encountered in setting up this coalition, stories all over the world. And I want now just to focus for a moment on one particular story, which is what has inspired our Connectors campaign that you're about to find out about. And that's the story of what happened in one small English town called Frome. Frome's very pretty, not really on anyone's map. It's got a population of roughly 28,000 people, sits in a larger, we call them counties. In America, you call them states, regions, whatever you want. So this pretty picturesque town of Frome. But in amongst the chocolate box photos, there was a lot of loneliness there, and there was a lot of underlying ill health. And the doctors in Frome became really concerned about the levels of loneliness in the community. And so what they decided to do was to set up a system of connectors. They got members of the public to come forward and be connectors. And I feel really moved talking about this, which is what they found was that compassion literally saved lives. The death rate in Frome fell as a result of these connectors. And one of the doctors that was heavily involved in this program is an amazing man called Julian Abel. And I hope in a minute we're going to get Julian Abel's video up. He's in India at the moment, otherwise he would have been with us live, but he has, I recorded this conversation with him before he went, and he really tells the story himself so beautifully. So over to Dr. Julian Abel on the story of the town of Frome.
Flourish when there's love, laughter and friendship around, and when they're not lonely and isolated. So this project had been going a couple of years, and then we looked at the results to see whether it was making any difference. We had no idea. We just knew it was the right thing to do. And we were absolutely flabbergasted to find that the whole population emergency admissions in Frome went down by 15%, whilst in the rest of Somerset, they went up by 30%. And we knew the significance of that because there are no interventions which have ever reduced whole population emergency admissions. If there was a pill that could do this, it would be a medical miracle, the likes of which we've not seen before. It's not a pill, it's compassionate communities. It's having a sense of belonging in the place that we live. It's connecting people up when they're lonely and isolated. And even if you're feeling well, it's still connecting people up. And it has a completely transformative impact on people's health and well-being. What happens is when we have these even small moments of kindness and compassion, is that we have these hormonal cascades of these health-giving hormones, of boosts in oxytocin, in noradrenaline, in serotonin. And at the same time, our nervous system sends all kinds of messages throughout the body that are health-giving messages. They're messages of a sense of connection, which means that you are safe in your environment. You know, all of our warning systems, they just totally calm down, and we're able to be fully present as a human being when we feel safe, connected, and have a sense of belonging. Good social relationships, that sense of connection, are more effective at keeping us alive than giving up smoking, drinking, diet, exercise, and way more effective than the treatment of high blood pressure using medication. It's the most powerful therapeutic tool we have. It is an absolute marker of our biology. There's another way of saying it. If we want to live a long, healthy, happy life, it's all about compassion. It's all about good social relationships. It's all about a sense of belonging and being connected to the world around us.
Wonderful. So what you're really saying is that we all, because of this innate ability we all have to connect, together we can actually change the fabric of our society, improve our own health, but also really do something to start bringing about change.
That's an absolutely critical point. We see how we're all interdependent with each other, and there's no kind of get out of jail cards for free, you know. That's applicable in the loss of biodiversity, the just unceasing consumption of everything. And the more that we can have this sense of connection and belonging, the more we can face these problems, and the less we are reliant on external manifestations of wealth to try and give us this sense of belonging. How we do all of this together is absolutely critical. In Frome, a town of 28,000 people, there are now more than 1,000 people who have done this very short training about being a community connector, just finding ways in which the people of Frome can support the people of Frome. You know where the community resources are. We know that on average that a community connector will have 20 conversations a year just about when they hear something in their daily life about somebody's talking about this. Well, I don't know the answer, but I know where you may be able to get the answer, or, you know, whatever it is. 20,000 conversations in a town of 28,000 people. This is completely transformative. This is so effective now. Frome is known as a friendly town. It's in fact People are moving to Frome because it's known as a friendly town. It's possible to transform everything with this Saints of Connection.
So Frome transformed itself through having connectors that went out and had conversations and compassionate interactions. And I think you're now known as the town that banished loneliness, aren't you?
Well, that's it. That's it. And I really like this idea that every time one of these conversations take place, there's this kind of a mini compassion bomb that happens that has a ripple effect, that even people watching get the benefit of seeing something good going on.
Wonderful. Dr. Julian Abel, thank you so much. And I also need to say thank you to you, because you are going to help us train those who come forward to be connectors so that they can do exactly what you've been talking about, become agents for change and help to transform wherever they find themselves.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I think through something simple, we can do this all over the world. We all have this potential. We've all got this treasure, so let's make best use of it.
So there you have it. Rick and I talked to Julian, heard about this, and we want to make this a reality, take it across the world through all of you. So I'm going to give you the details in a moment, but just take a moment to listen, to watch this short film about the Connectors program, which is going to come up very, very shortly, I'm sure. And before we took the decision to launch it, here we go. Wonderful. I just want to say thank you to Matt Hawkins, who has made these beautiful films for us. So it's a very simple idea. It's a very simple idea. You know, we all have the ability to connect, but often we take it for granted. And really what this scheme is about becoming conscious of just how important that ability to connect is, just what a difference it makes.
I know, Jennifer, you've put a lot of thought into this, and compassion can sound very airy-fairy or exalted or religious only or something like that, but connection just seems so concrete and real. And what Dr. Abel found, as you know, is that very simple forms of connection, like smiling at people or saying hello or asking how they're doing or wondering if you could help a little bit. Little concrete forms like that really made a huge difference. And so I wondered if you could talk more about this Connectors program that we're launching from the Global Compassion Coalition. You're spearheading it, and why you think it's important and what people can do to become involved with it.
Thank you, Rick. Absolutely. And first of all, I just want to explain a bit more of the thinking behind it, because it wasn't just Frome. Before Christmas, I went out to Spain, and Spain has only had a democracy since the late 1970s, after Franco's death. And I visited a community there that was doing almost the same thing. And I talked to them about it, and they were doing all sorts of events within the community as a result of it. And I said, and what are you finding? And he said, well, it's bad, actually. Last week, we found there were 2 people who were lonely, but we're taking action. We're going to do something about it. And I was so struck. Imagine a community where just 2 people feeling lonely is a serious matter and is going to be addressed. So that's what we're aiming for. And So just to sum up, compassion matters to us individually. It improves our own life and health. It has an impact on the health of others and our community. But I just want to talk about a third reason which is behind us starting this scheme. And that is the importance of communities to be resilient at difficult political times. Now, we all know that we're facing climate change. We all know that many of us live in countries with troubled political regimes. And Timothy Snyder, the historian at Yale, wrote a great book called On Tyranny. And what he identified was that the best defense against tyranny, against extreme government, is community, a well-stitched together community. So by becoming connectors, you're not just improving your own health, the health of others, you're actually helping to build a community that is going to be strong enough to deal with whatever hardships around the corner. So that's the thinking behind it. What do you actually have to do? Really simple, 3 things. Undertake to make 3 connections a week. And we can talk about what connection means in a minute, but just 3 connections. Sometimes it'll be a conversation, sometimes it'll be an acknowledgement. The second thing is find 2 things in your community that are really good news. So much of the time we kind of clock all the things that are bad in our communities, all the things that aren't working, that used to work, that don't work now. But what we focus on grows. So let's find those good things. There we go. There's the graphic. So 3 new connections a week. Identify 2 good things where you live. Maybe a friendship cafe, maybe a drop-in center, maybe a great clinic, maybe a playgroup. Who knows? Just find them, celebrate them, and tell other people about them. And then the third action is find one other person to become a connector. Compassion is contagious, and the way this is going to grow is by if each of us recruit one more person and that person recruits one more person, this is going to spread. So that is the idea. And if you'd like to sign up, there's a QR code there. Go and have a look on the website, and we'll be providing training, very basic training. So you don't need to feel worried about any interactions you're going to have. As you heard, Julian Abel is going to be involved in that. And I'm just seeing some great suggestions come up in the chat already. Dog walking. Yeah, just become part of your community and connect.
So that's fantastic. And what if you're like me and are kind of shy and nervous maybe about connecting with a person you don't already know? And is there a place for connecting even more deeply with the people you already know?
There is, for sure. And, this connection is so important, and it's often easy to neglect those we live with, those we are already in relationship to focus on what's happening outside. And, that is not to be neglected. But really the purpose of this is to spread connection beyond the home. We all live with these values at the heart of our families and how we live, being kind to each other, taking care of those who are struggling. But we need to take those out of the homes and to co-create a society where they are the values by which we all live. And in terms of your point, we're all somewhere on the scale of introvert to extrovert. And I have family members who would be horrified about the thought of talking to a random stranger. My kids used to just cower when I took them to the supermarket. They'd go, "She's going to talk to people, stop her. This is so embarrassing." But it starts with a glance. It starts with that connection, just spending a moment longer, holding the gaze of someone else, just acknowledging their humanity. And one of the reasons why I personally am so moved by compassion is that at the heart of compassion is this notion of equality, that we are all of equal value, all of us. It doesn't matter who we are, what we do, whether we're living on the streets, whether we're living in the White House. We are all humans of equal worth and value. And there is something in this process of connection that affirms it.
Yeah, it's compassion in action, and in the most fundamental ways, even going back to our ancestral roots, living together with other people. I mean, what's helped me as a shy, person is, first of all, to actually see other people. We become so numb to others. We become so flooded with social media. We lower our gaze. I don't mean being intrusive, like staring at somebody, but just actually seeing others. And if you take the extra 2 seconds, maybe 3, you start to get a sense of them, not just a body in space of some kind. So seeing others, that's fundamental. And then second thing that I have found really helps is to rest in a fundamental benevolence, a fundamental attitude of goodwill rather than ill will, right? That, you have to protect yourself, but you have a basic attitude of good wishes, simple good wishes. May you be at peace. May you not suffer. May your children do well. May you find health, just simple goodwill toward others. And others can tell. They can tell if you're actually present with them, you're seeing them, and if you actually have goodwill toward them. And just that right there is so foundational for making connections with other people.
Wonderful. And people are beginning to sign up already. I'm so excited. So please do sign up. The link will be in the chat. The link will be on our website, Global Compassion Coalition. And the more of us who take that step, and we'll be starting the training in a couple of weeks, and I can't wait for what's going to happen. There's the link. You can just hold your phone at that, I think, and something will happen. But if you're not that techie, if you're like me and not that techie, don't worry. You can just go to a good old-fashioned website or click on a link in the chat. And we've got more people signing up as I'm speaking, and this is incredibly moving, and we're going to be talking a lot about this over the coming months. This is what we need. We've got to work at both levels. We've got to work at the level of political interventions, and we have to work at the level of one-on-one human connection, and we have to work on compassion within ourselves. We heard those wonderful young people talking about loving themselves. So there are 3 stages to this process, aren't there? There's how we are, our relationship with ourselves, our relationships with others, and then what's happening to national and a global level. And this coalition is going to work on all of those entry points. Anyway, Rick, I'm going to hand back to you because you're going to introduce our next guest.
Well, speaking of things, first, young people, I want to correct, I misspoke. Asaman is not in Australia. He's actually in Baltimore, United States. So I apologize for that. And second, I'm just struck, Jennifer, by what you're saying. As a running theme in this whole program, in the relationship between what seems like very, very small acts with widening ripples, reaching out through larger and larger systems into the whole world in ways seen and unseen, as the traditional proverb puts it. And that's heartening to trust that our own individual acts of connection and compassion, besides their immediate and obvious benefits, including to ourselves, really do connect and really do build what I think of as the living tissue of civil society, that fundamental cellular structure of civil society that, as Professor Snyder points out, besides its many other benefits, is the most fundamental bulwark against tyranny. So to know that what you're doing individually and personally is rippling out societally is a really good thing to keep in mind. And if there's one person who really knows it, it is Tara Brach, my friend and teacher, Dr. Tara Brach, who many of you in this program will certainly know about. I interviewed her as one of the 5 teachers for the Heart of Compassion program. And this is a little segment in which Tara is speaking really touchingly about bridging differences, as Joan Blades knows well, and using the bridging power of compassion to connect us with others, even those that we're struggling with. So let's hear from Tara now.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this because, in a way, to me, it's the scariest facet of what's unfolding in the society, how we're going into our own compartments or group compartments more and more, and how insular they are. And it feels like the direction we need to go in is to get outside of the cocoon of the people that we agree with and who are like us. I know for myself, what I select to read or to listen to, podcasts and so on, is usually things that affirm and confirm my perspective. And so I think what we need to do is to read and converse with and seek out people who are different than us, who might disagree with us, get their view and opinion. We actually get smarter if we challenge our viewpoints and engage like that. But it's more than getting smarter. It's more than just enlarging our view. It's really connecting. We need to connect across difference. And that means learning to listen so another person will feel like they've never been listened to this way before. Then they'll be able to listen. Then there's a way that we can connect our worlds to really seek to understand. We're so fixated on being right, and to really seek to understand another, to put down our need to be right. And, you know, if somebody states a view that's different than ours, to ask a follow-up question that's getting at, what makes this important to you? What about this matters to you so much? The sense inside what people are saying, where the vulnerability that something's they care about because there's something missing, something hurting. I love the way civil rights icon Ruby Sales puts it. She says, where does it hurt? That's her filter for trying to understand groups and, you know, what's really going on in our society, that everybody cares about life in their own ways, and there may be misguided ideas. But deep down, it's the same goodness of life, loving life. You know, I sometimes fantasize of if we could just build this into how we do our society, where people from different polarized groups would get together and in some way, and I know this is happening on small scales, but more generally, talk about what they most deeply care about, and that it would start just repairing the tears in the fabric and reminding of that fundamental belonging, because that's the suffering, is we've forgotten our belonging. And I wanted to share with you maybe one of my favorite few lines from Sri Nisargadatta about this. It just always strikes me. And he says this, he says, when you look at anything as separate from you, you cannot love it, for you're afraid of it. When you know beyond all doubting that the same life flows through all that is, and you are that life, you'll love all naturally and spontaneously. How to learn to see that, you know, how for us to be looking at each other and really sensing it's the same consciousness looking out through these eyes as through those eyes, that it's the same field that's of loving and aliveness. It's living through both of us, and it's living through the trees, and it's living through the people we disagree with, and how to have that be more in the foreground so that we have a way to make room for the differences and still remember our belonging. It just feels like probably the most important work individually and collectively we can do for the sake of life on this precious planet.
Wow. So moving, so moving. And while we've been listening to Tara, I can tell you that we've got over 100 people signed up, and the number is growing. So please, let's try and double that while we're still on air. And feel free to tell your friends about it, invite other people into it. So we're talking about action. You know, connection may seem small, minute, delicate, but it is an action. It's an action that has results. It's an action that can help save lives. It's an action that can help transform our society. And now I'd like to introduce you to a dear colleague from the amazing organization Action for Happiness. It's Alex Nunn, and he's someone who knows how to move from intention into action. So I'm delighted he's with us, and I'm going to hand over to you now, Alex. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. What an incredible honor to be here. We're so delighted to be part of this amazing movement as part of Action for Happiness, joining up with the GCC. And I promise, going to fulfill my task of inspiring you into action. But I wanted to start, actually, since we're talking about connection, and because my heart is racing, partly because I caffeinated myself a little bit much. It's getting late here in the UK. I'd like to start by just having a sense of connection with all of you. I can't see you right now. You're a little number on my screen. But if I close my eyes, I can imagine all the other compassionate people, hundreds of you, spread out across many different countries, in your homes, maybe in your workplaces, tuning into this call, driven by a compassionate intention, choosing to turn towards the suffering of the world and be part of healing it and remedying it. And I feel so much warmer instantly in that sense of connection. I feel so much more hope knowing that you are there. So thank you for being there. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a reality check for us. We are living in a very unique time in human history. We have never before had such stimulating audiovisual connection to suffering in the world. We are so oversaturated with the presence of suffering in our lives that we can't do anything but just essentially suppress it. You know, I could open my phone right now and tune straight into like the front lines of a war in Ukraine that's happening, you know, only a matter of miles away. It's a place that's actually very dear to my heart. Our culture does not equip us with the tools to process this. Our culture is trying to tell us to consume. It's trying to tell us to work harder and to actualize ourselves. It's trying to tell us to distract ourselves in whatever way we can. Now, that would be fine if it worked, but it really doesn't. Not only does that lead to us not solving the problems, it actually doesn't really work long-term for us either. The act of suppression of both the empathic response and the moral response to suffering in the world is exhausting. I went through my life from quite an early age, I think partly due to my incredibly loving mother, who I know is on this call and will appreciate the name check, with really strong attributes. One, an openness of emotion, an openness to the world, an openness to care for others, and a motivation to connect. But that, as a young person in a world that has so much apparent injustice, is actually quite a difficult way to grow up. You're kind of constantly burdened by the wounding of the world and not really equipped with the right sort of tools to be able to appropriately manage it. And it's where I've been so inspired in my life to discover compassion, is that it has, particularly compassionate action, the power to remedy both the empathic burnout and the moral function. We have, you know, this, when we move into action, we are not only experiencing a transition from being a passive kind of observer of a situation into someone connected and involved, just as Tara was saying, we're also sending out a beacon, a message that actually change is possible, that compassion is part of what we want to do. And this is really what's led to so much of our work in Action for Happiness, a movement I've been part of for coming up on 10 years, where we inspire people to take action every single day in their daily lives in ways that can create more happiness and create more gratitude, create more connection, and create more compassion. And I wanted to share a few different insights that we have about action that come from our Action for Happiness movement. The first is that action is transformative. As wonderful as it is to go on courses and to educate ourselves and to hear inspiring words and to let that sink deeply into our bodies, it can be very transformative. The actual process of embodying an intention into an action and getting the feedback of actually experiencing what happens, witnessing the expression on the face of the person that you're helping, you know, the full embodied experience sinks so much deeper into us and actually can lead our further thoughts and feelings as we kind of move forward. So that process of actually trying something out first as a first step, actually moving into a step of action, can be really impactful on us as individuals. The second point is that it has a kind of greater than the sum of its parts effect. So when you move into an action rather than just a compassionate thought, what you're doing is helping yourself. You get that kind of helper's high. We know that treating others gives us more of a boost emotionally than treating ourselves. You're helping that other person, which, given that they're suffering, is profoundly helpful. But you're also telling the world, anyone who might be witnessing that, anyone who hears that story later, anyone who understands that that happened, can then be inspired to model that in some way. You're sort of putting a flag in the world and saying, this is a compassionate place. This is a place where people help people. The power of that is phenomenal because it reframes people's entire reality. So much of what we're being shown, what we're being told, is all the problems, all the breakdown, all the difficulty in the world. And that, whilst it might help us be more aware of where some action is required, it's quite a debilitating emotional state to try and take any affirmative action from. So we have to find ways to really resource ourselves with compassion, with joy, with a spirit of inclusivity that can actually resource us into taking action that makes a real difference. And in order to address these kind of systemic problems, we're going to need huge movements, right? We're going to need change. I think we all are on this call because we know in our heart of hearts, the world as it is formulated right now is not the most compassionate world that it could be. And we can inspire ourselves and inspire others to imagine it being different. And so I'm so, so grateful that movements like Action for Happiness exist, inspiring people to take action in their own lives, to become happier, to spread kindness to others, that movements like the GCC exist, to spread compassion, to set that vision, to join. I loved what Rick said earlier about pooling the resources into a single bucket, that kind of channeling of all this compassionate resource that's out there. But also movements like Extinction Rebellion in the climate space, movements like Black Lives Matter, movements of Indigenous people in the Amazon. All of these are manifestations of profound compassionate action, and they're all motivated by the same compassionate intentional core that's right at the depth of our hearts. So we need, as a planet, these movements. We need them to succeed. They'll only succeed if we each choose to play our part in them. So I'm calling on you to sign up the link that's been provided to be a compassionate connector. I was almost going to say the be the change, but actually I think there's an important point about be the change. So I can just squeeze this into my time, I think. When Gandhi said the phrase be the change, which has been taken and used in many, many places, he was actually responding to a question. And that question is, Mr. Gandhi, since you're not a very good speaker, you're not very inspiring when you talk, you often meander in your thoughts. How is it that you've mobilized millions of people to follow you? And he said, it's because of my authenticity. It's because I be the change that I want to see in the world. So yes, absolutely, take that step, be that change, but do it in a way that others can follow so that we can do it together. We don't need to walk this path alone. And by acting as movements, we're going to make a real difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. First time I met you, I don't know, it feels like a year ago or actually just 6 months. It was completely inspiring. And I think for so many of us, it's helpful to realize that standing to the left, standing to the right, in front of us, behind us, all around us, are millions, even billions of people right now on this earth, breathing along with us, doing things, most of them seemingly small, and yet we have, the mighty rivers that are formed from just single drops of water coming together, a mighty stream moving through the world to help make it better. And there's such a great sense, I really get it from you, of feeling in common cause, camaraderie, common humanity with all those others who are doing that too. And that's a real comfort when we're maybe starting to feel burned out or like it doesn't matter or it's hopeless, to feel that there is that sense of collective action with others that you really powerfully talk about right now. And for us, it's very simple. If you just click that URL code or that Q code. There you QR code. There you go. I'm old school. And or otherwise join the Compassion Connectors program. You really, really, really can make a very tangible difference, as serious research has shown, including in communities. You can make a serious difference to make things better and to form more and more compassionate communities around the world. So thank you, Alex. And now over to Jennifer.
That was wonderful. Alex Nunn, you're the best. You're the best. Thank you so much for that. And action absolutely is the antidote to hope and despair. Now we're nearing the end of our time together at this summit, but I hope this is going to be the beginning of a really strong and wonderful relationship between us all as we build this movement. And I just wanted to bring up a dirty word before we close, which is politics. Before I met Rick and began to work on this, building this coalition with him, I had co-founded an organization in the UK with Matt Hawkins called Compassion in Politics. And lots of people said to us, that's an oxymoron. Compassion and politics together, that's never going to work. But actually, you know, my strong belief is, and I'm sure it's a belief shared by many of you out there, is that the whole purpose of government is to make lives better for its citizens and to try and alleviate avoidable suffering. You know, so much suffering in life is inevitable, but there's a whole heap more that is not inevitable. You know, we have the resources to feed everyone on our planet. We know how to stop climate change, but our governments aren't acting. So it's really important that we keep that political pressure on. And we're really excited that politicians are signing up to be part of the coalition. Please feel free to ask your representative to do the same. And one of the things we do at Compassion in Politics, and we've now just done it for the GCC, is to poll voters. You know, what do you want? And we have the figures to show that what voters want is more compassion from their leaders. So we can give politicians evidence that this is actually what voters want from them. Many voters, there are many of us, and we have to become as powerful a lobby as the lobbies that exist for all sorts of horrible and terrible things like guns. So let's join together and become a really powerful lobby. And just before we go, I'm going to highlight two politicians that are champions for compassion. There are some amazing politicians that are doing good in this world. And one is the Green Member of Parliament. She's the only MP that the Green Party has in the UK Parliament, but she is repeatedly voted for as the best MP. So I'll hand over to her to say why she supports more compassion.
So compassion and cooperation and courage are the values that hold us together in times of disaster. So my plea for today is let's make sure that we put them at the center of our politics, not just in times of disaster, but at all times. And they need to be at the center of our response to the climate and nature emergencies. And as we inspire a kind of societal-wide shift towards ways of living that promote human and planetary well-being, let's remember something else that we've learned, and that is that, frankly, when government accepts that there's an emergency, it can find the money it needs to spend. There's no shortage of money, there's no shortage of technology, there's no shortage of science. There is a shortage of political will, but political will is a renewable resource, and it's something that with compassion, we can make sure we develop into the future.
Wonderful words from Caroline Lucas. And of course, she's not the only politician who is really working towards a fairer world and solutions to climate change. A few weeks ago, I had the honor to sit down with a woman whose work I had read a lot, you know, when I began my spiritual searching and my spiritual journey. And she was a spiritual teacher who has now entered politics in a very real way in the United States. And it talks she talks so much to what we're trying to do at the coalition. We're trying to bring, the practice and the science of compassion and to deliver real societal systemic change as a result of it. So a couple of weeks ago, I had the honor of sitting down with 2024 presidential candidate Marianne Williamson to talk about compassion and the mission of the Global Compassion Coalition. And she told me why compassion is central to her political philosophy and why it's the essential ingredient in creating a world that is just, equitable and kind. So to close us out, everyone, here's Marianne Williamson.
Compassion is who we are. I think we are beings of love. I think that's our creation. And when the world is out of sync with compassion, it's out of sync with who we are. That's also why the world is out of sync with compassion, because we are out of sync with ourselves. And when it comes to politics, I think a lot of people who recognize that compassion, forgiveness, love, integrity, character, justice, many people recognize that those things matter on a personal level. I think the vast majority of people see that those things matter on a personal level. And yet the leap that I think is so important right now is for us to recognize that compassion in the public spaces, i.e. politics, ultimately are as important as private expressions of love and compassion and mercy.
Why do you think that compassion has been edged out of the political space, if it ever was there?
I know certainly in my country, it's quite simple. It's neoliberal economics. It's the idea of an economic order that is essentially soulless. The idea of the exaltation of short-term corporate profits at the expense of compassion, of concern for health, safety, welfare of people and of animals and of the planet. And if you buy into that kind of economic worldview and think that that should be the governing principle of your society, then compassion can't but be left out because it is considered secondary. Humanitarian values are considered secondary to economic ones. Am I worried? I'm very worried. And of course, this threat is not just in my country. Many countries are facing it. And a lot of the things that you and I are talking about here clearly are global in nature. It's not just one country going through these things. What is happening in my country, however, is this crisis in democracy where too often, because of the undue influence of money, specifically corporate money, on our political system, the will of the people is not what's being expressed in public policy so much as the will of major corporate interests. And that's a problem. Martin Luther King said, you have very little morally persuasive power with people who feel your underlying contempt. There are high-minded conservative values and there are high-minded liberal values. Only in a totalitarian society do we all have to agree with each other all the time. There are people with whom I do not agree, but often it can be said that listening to them informed me. I understood an angle of something more than I did. We have got to stop this jump to judgment that we all have. I think social media has really exacerbated this. Sometimes you just need to listen to another person. You know, the universe doesn't need you to put out a press release with your opinion about their opinion. We all get to own this world. We all get to own our countries. And I think the quality of the debate, the quality of the conversation is what ultimately matters. If we will listen to one another, then truth somehow finds its way to the top. On the other hand, if you're talking about voices which are genuinely neo-fascist, which are genuinely this neo-authoritarianism, then it is appropriate to say no, and it is appropriate to set boundaries in our public relationships, just as it is in our personal ones. And for those of us who love democracy, when it comes to some of the extreme right-wing threats in our midst these days, it is absolutely appropriate to say no, stop right there. The energy's in the air. It's the zeitgeist of the moment in which we're living. And that's why you have already attracted so many people to your work, because I do believe there is a consensus among a critical mass of people on this planet. We have to turn around and try another way. You know, when I was a child, my father, we would go somewhere and we would see someone working a certain job. And my father would say, see that, kids? He'd say, yeah. And he'd say, her life is hard. Her life is hard. And once you are in that place, you want to do whatever you can, some tender moment, Sometimes it's just smiling at people, being more gentle with people, noticing people. You never know the difference you could make in somebody's life. Another story from my father. This clearly bothered him a lot because he told the story a lot about a friend of his who he was passing one day who said, "Hey, Sam, stop and have a cup of coffee with me." And my father said, "Can't, I'm busy." And that man later committed suicide. Now, my father was not so grandiose as to think he had made all the difference, but he carried shame. He carried guilt, and I know he did because he mentioned the story quite a few times when I was growing up. You never know. Because think about your own life. Has anything helped you more than human kindness? So when you think about how much it's helped you when somebody's just been kinder to you, you begin to have a greater sensitivity to how your kindness might be useful to other people as well.
Wonderful sentiment to end on there. And of course, Rick, you know, both of us have spoken to politicians across the spectrum who believe in compassion. It doesn't belong to one party, one brand of politician, but what we have to do is to support and amplify those who are arguing for compassion.
Yes, one thing that has really struck me in that model of all of us sitting around the fire, lots of diversity in the tribe, in the band, sitting around the fire. And now at the world scale, our vision is to create a kind of a commons, a frame, a ground that is highly diverse and highly inclusive and highly heterogeneous of the world altogether, the whole human tribe at scale, all 8 billion of us, right? Many people and many organizations in this growing and soon to be vast coalition will disagree with each other about many things while agreeing with each other about one thing. Suffering matters. And it's important to be moved to relieve it and to change its underlying causes. That's the one thing, right, that can encompass from the heart the many things and the many views and the many backgrounds and the many stories that we have. And to me, that's what's unique, what's potentially historic, truly historic here, that we are making together. So I want to express my gratitude as we finish to those of you who have joined us, and to those of you paying it forward who will see this program in the future, to those of you who support others in participating in this coalition in all kinds of ways. Thank you. And I certainly thank you, Jennifer, my buddy here, and to everybody who's enabled this program to happen, both on the technical side, Monique and her team. Dee, you've been a hero in how you've managed the chat here. Wow. And just Matt Hawkins and Christine Claghorn, and then everybody else in part of our whole team, Alex Wilkes and others among them. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know we're going to do a really neat thing that involves a bit of a ritual here as we finish up. So maybe, Jennifer, you can bring us home.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring my candle up here. I don't know if you've got yours, Rick.
From the start.
Wonderful. And just as I hold this light here, I want to thank all of you for being a light in the darkness, for joining here, and together, all of our candles are going to shine a huge light and create a shift. And thank you also to those who've already signed up for the Connectors program. I can't believe nearly half the people on this call have signed up. Rick, can you believe that? It's wonderful. So carry your light, keep your pilot light bright. We need all of you. Everything is possible if we do it together. Go in peace.
Sometimes I lay under the moon. Sometimes in my